I swear when you get into podcast land, that's how motherfuckers describe the process of the pre-chat. Like, I swear that's the jargon for this shit.
Well, we could also say warming up, you know? We could say it. I'm all for it, though. Lube is used in many different, whatever.
It just makes life smoother and easier.
Hey,
right.
Smoother and easier, and that's what we start with. Salutations, everybody. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I think I'm actually a little rusty here, guys. Welcome, everybody. This is the Prspctvs podcast with your host, Holden Stefan Roy. Holden, say hi.
Hi, Holden. It's all right. I know my part.
And you do know your part. And myself, Lady Bro Flaco. And today we have our guest. You know what? I'm gonna start with like a question off rip before I even get to like the intro shit. Yeah.
It's a good question.
How do I
Baxter Wordz.
Like Baxter Wordz.
So it's not Wordz.
Like we discovered,
It used to be
Wordz. Very
because the Keela song comes out, and then we got really confused.
No, you know what? I forgot to tell Hilla that it was just Baxter Wordz. I forgot to emphasize that, and she put like so much effort into putting that shit out. I didn't have the heart to go back and be like, "Yo, can you switch it to Baxter Wordz?" I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna let that shit rock. But
so we were super confused.
It's Baxter Wordz.
That's
not the. Okay. I changed it.
Is it Wordz with S or a Z
S,
or Z? Z as you Americans people put it, you know.
Z is because it's hip hop, but no, it's Wordz with an S.
That's fair. I respect that.
So
just
Prspctvs.
That's a good start.
With our guest, Baxter Wordz.
And I guess I've never declared that in any place, so you guys got the first declaration of that.
It's also maybe because sometimes you gotta do the due diligence and you encounter 3 spellings because the Instagram throws the Z into the equation and you're like, as a person trying to actually figure out what the correct name is.
I might have put the Z on Instagram. Let me double check that and fix it.
That one's 100.
You might have been in your hip-hop head bag.
I did. I absolutely did.
You know what I mean?
So I'm like
yo, know what time it is.
You know sometimes you gotta confuse people.
I think I'm not sure how much Jess went by the Z before we met, but I'll tell you this: once we met, I wasn't ever addressing him with none of that S at the end of the James. It was all Z.
Like, it has to be for him because that's how you can Google him.
Z.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's what I always stress him. Googleableness.
Right. Yeah, man.
Okay, folks, ladies and
let's
gentlemen,
run into it.
Let's run the intro, right? So the way that this show came about, Bax, I know that you know the origin story, but for show purposes, right? Like we got to do it, right? One time, me and Holden, right? Like we met because I was putting out music, doing Lady Bros Volume 1, right? And the engineer was an engineer from Montreal, Canada, and he might as well be like a New York hip hop head, right? Because he's very like, oh, I'm not going to share like anybody that I work with musically because a lot of people that I work with musically might be trash and I don't want to be like associating with this shit. But facts. He shared our shit, which made Holden, who notices how little he does share anybody else's music, kind of perk up and be like, what's this that you're sharing? Like, what? Wait, what? And so he checked it out, right? Kind of dug the shit that we was doing. And did like a little review. Such a New York nigga. Immediately like tried to belittle it, like a little review. Why do we use the word little? The word little is so belittling. New Yorkers are the worst, Anyway, so he did a review. We were like, yo, this is lit. I was like, yo, we should do an interview. We did an interview. I felt like I went to fucking therapy after I did an interview with him, bro. I was like, yo, why are you asking me questions that I've never been asked all these years in hip hop? It's always like fucking, when did you fall in love with hip hop?
I'll confirm that the interviews that I've seen Holden do, he definitely hits it at an angle that like other people don't really come at. I don't know if it's the Montreal thing. I don't know if it's just your love for.
I think he cares. He just cares.
On that, give me 2 seconds. I gotta go let my company in. Be right back.
Yeah, say word. This is the pre. We were warned. real life situation where Baxter has real life guests or something to that effect coming on through. So we got that little glimpse beyond the white door of Baxter Wordz.
We got to see outside the front door and shit. You know what I mean?
Yo, I like that
We
bee
know how
he
he
has.
lives.
That's cool. It's
Oh,
just
the
that
B,
bee in the
letter
background.
B right there, right? Baxter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, right. I'm rusty as fuck, yo.
It's
You
alright,
know?
bro. We can be rusty.
We're gonna go through this together. We're gonna be all
Y'all
right.
got that's how you know things are authentic, internet. Authenticity comes from the rustiness and whatnot. You know, it can't just be all like, oof, like I gotta move this stuff. But yeah, no, it's everybody's rusty. Plus, it's like life moves on and we get busy, and then it's like,
got so busy.
Then all of a sudden you're trying to like remember the exact sequence, and I'm gonna be real with you. We is not fully in the world of professional land upon which there's like 8 people off cam with like producer cues.
No, we are not. We are not those guys. We don't have a whole team. It's just us and Danny.
Yo, shout out Danny. Danny's big MVP,
is our team,
y'all.
though, technically speaking, though.
Big MVP. Without Danny, this isn't happening.
Facts.
That's what's up.
I co-signed everything. I wasn't even here for it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's as much the Montreal stuff as more I don't know, I figured out that like it's just like okay to not know things. And that was like a lot of it, right?
It's okay to not know things.
Right?
That's real. That's super real.
So like to me it's an opportunity to like ask questions I care about. I'll be real with you, bro. I have never personally heard a person talk about their songs or their albums for more than 5 minutes and keep it litty. So the life stuff is litty. The people care about like that stuff. Like, but that's what you care about. That's what we all care about. So it's like the music part. Let the rest of the internet cover that. You know what I mean?
Okay, I respect it. That's a different. I like the perspectives.
I love the. I'm not gonna lie. Since we changed the name, like I'm so into like. Anytime I say the word perspectives, I almost want to hit like the. I want to hit the imaginary. Like I'm Jim Carrey in the Truman Show. Like look dramatically at the camera.
Yo, it's an amazing because that's what it is though. I'm like, I guess because I don't know all the New York shit, it has a charm when talking to New Yorkers. But yeah, it's just also like I'm curious about other things. Like I don't know, nobody ever talks about the 5-year-old shit, and then you hear about the 5-year-old shit, and it's like, oh, say word. We all
that's
gotta
the
know,
shit that I'm the most interested in. I think. So let's get to it, right? So
exactly. First question that you ask.
I went through all that to say, right, like the first question that I interrupt Holden's question for is, why don't you introduce yourself to people and tell us where you are from and where your parents are from?
Oh, interesting. It's interesting already. My name is Baxter Wordz. I am an MC from New York City. I'm from all over New York City. I was born in Harlem off of 116th Street, but my earliest memories are from 151st Street in Amsterdam. I was raised in St. Albans / Cambria Heights, Queens.
Pause there. We're going to go through that. We good.
Okay.
But now we got to go to where your parents be from.
Okay. My mother is from here, black. She's half Jamaican, which makes me a quarter Jamaican. My father is 100% Puerto Rican, from Harlem somewhere. He passed away when I was young, so I didn't really get to know him or that side of my family. But my grandfather was the first president of the National Puerto Rican Day Parade. So,
that's lit off rip. Puerto Rican Day Parade, Holden, just so that you know, right? Like we do a lot of, as much as we're interviewing UBACs, we are also educating Holden, right? Like
yeah,
from Montreal.
Not just Holden, but everybody.
And everybody, right, exactly. And right, like the Puerto Rican Day Parade in New York City, Holden, is fucking huge.
Yeah.
And it's like probably like as you know how like the Irish people kind of like St. Patrick's Day is like a big thing, kind of like almost everywhere in the world. And like they're like big about their parade. In New York City, their parade is also big, but like the Puerto Rican Day Parade might actually like outdo the
you know what's
St.
crazy
Patty's
about
Day
the Puerto
parade
Rican
with the
parade
numbers of people.
is they have Puerto Rican Day parades in the boroughs by themselves.
Yes.
And then they have the big national Puerto Rican Day parades.
In
So like that's how proud Puerto Ricans are of being Puerto Rican. It's like we're gonna have a parade and then have another one just parade. Because the extra pride.
That's how I feel about Dominicans because they have Dominican women have like a Dominican's Mother's Day date that's different than the American Mother's Day date. And they celebrate
them both. Yeah,
like, why would you not though? Why would you not?
Game the system.
It's like It's like if one of your parents is Jewish and the other one's fucking not. It's like let's do Christmas and Hanukkah. Why not?
It's kind of how it works out, though. I mean, I went through a little bit of that. So with that, we got the main real question, and now that was a little bit of contest to make it land harder. There's a little bit of a story, and you may have heard the story, but still, as we run it, it all starts with my girlfriend, and she's washing the dishes one time, and she's playing that Black Eyed Peas song on her phone. The I got a feeling. Ooh, vibing, she's dancing, she's doing her thing, and I look at her and I had this moment of realization, like, when the fuck did this song become chores music? And I say that because if you take this same very song and you run it back like 10, 11 years, this is like the middle of the night club banger anthem, everybody dancing, having the best time of their life song. And then all this time passes and the song doesn't change at all because it's a song, but our lives evolve so much that the context and relationship with the song that we have, like, it changes so much that it goes from being party fun music to the music we put on when we're doing boring shit and want to go back to party fun times to make the boring stuff much better. Which got me thinking about music and time and relationships and how the little ones, man, when they be out there with the Pop Smokes and whatnot, and they don't even know that they're going to be just doing dishes to that one day. And they don't know that the second Flacco and them was playing Pop Smoke in the car, I started playing Pop Smoke when I do dishes, and that's just the natural cycle of being a growing up in this world. Yeah. And it got me thinking about, again, just the musical journeys that we're all on. Because, when you watch so many of these interviews, and so many of the people out there, everybody kind of starts it at this adolescent phase when people kind of form their identity and kind of like figure out like, okay, I'm like 12 now and I like this rapper and I'm going to be a rhymer or I'm going to do this. And as much as that's a super pivotal part of the story, it's absolutely not the beginning of anybody's musical journey, right? Like, music is something that we kind of like have in our lives since time. Like, when you came out in the hospital, there's a very good chance somebody was listening to a song when that happened. And from that moment on, you was actually hearing music. Like, I can remember being like 5 years old in Montreal in the apartment. My dad's got all the gray boxes in the apartment, the amp, the preamp, the radio, the tape deck with the wires going to all the speakers and shit. And he'd be playing his Led Zeppelins and things like that off the tapes in the daytime. But at the nighttime, it's all this EDM club music straight from the clubs. But my mom, she was more like soft rock musicals and all of that kind of vibe. And all of this shit was swirling around before I had any control of any of the music that, I could listen to, just what they were into. And so with that, I was hoping, Mr. Baxter Wordz, you could run us back to being the smallest, youngest Baxter Wordz, probably in the 116s or 50s or something of Harlem, whenever you can remember, and tell us a little bit about what it sounded like to be you before you had control over this.
It's a funny question you ask, right? Well, it's not, the question itself isn't funny, but it makes me kind of think, obviously, as it's intended to do. I am surprised to say myself, I don't really remember the soundtrack to my days in Harlem. Like, I have vivid memories of a few things. One is spending time with my mother, but more than that, like movies. And if we're going to go with soundtracks, I would say my mother, when me and my brother were very young, me and my brother are close in age. He's like maybe like 18 months older than me or something like that.
That's dope.
Yeah, we were super close too when we were young. But my mother would like have us watching a lot of movies, and Grease 2 are some of the first movies I can ever remember watching. I absolutely love those movies. And it's like, I wasn't until I was in high school where I realized that people don't fuck with Grease 2 the same way they fuck with Grease 1.
No, they do not.
We were talking, I was with some friends, we was talking about it. They was like, yo, Grease is great. I was like, oh, I love Grease. And I was like, yo, in Grease 2, they was like, there's a Grease 2? What the fuck are you talking about? I was like, yo, don't sleep on Grease 2. Michelle Pfeiffer's in that. Fucking, they on motorcycles. It's crazy. But, a lot of those songs, a lot of the songs from those movies, I think, and a lot of cartoons.
Mad valid though, and cartoons is also mad valid. That shit comes up, believe it or not.
I've watched so many cartoons in my lifetime; it's a little ridiculous.
And like the theme songs is all music.
Absolutely.
These cartoons, a lot of these cartoons is just like low key musicals.
Yo, in the 80s. Motherfuckers went ham when it came to like the opening theme song to a cartoon. If you ever hear the Transformers fucking intro, they got like a string section. It's like Transformers. It's like, damn. Son.
The music back in the days was definitely like super. The one that I always think about is fucking.
Right,
Flash Gordon, like that shit.
Got a whole fucking choir. Save every one of us.
You know what I mean?
Oh shit! Yeah, okay, I know that.
That shit was essentially like
even Thundercats, G.I. Joe, all
Bohemian Rhapsody level.
Thundercats
shit, you know?
was big though. Thundercats is like that shit got sampled big.
Yo, because all of it is it's like music. It's like they had to hire actual bands and fucking artists to produce that stuff. But
I could see that as being a big influence. And yo, my mom's was huge on Grease. That she saw that shit over 100 times in theaters. That shit's a staple in my childhood, bro. Grease 2.
My older sister,
one of the other crowd though. She hated that shit.
Grease 2 is not a
church performance of Grease.
Church performance of Grease?
You know, like young youth group.
Oh, got you. Like, yeah.
Doing like a fucking
a rendition.
The whole play, the play. I guess.
I mean, yeah.
No, that's still cool. So if that's fair though, so your earliest memories are more you just being around the musicals and whatnot. But like, were you like up to anything when you were little, passion wise? Did you have any little hobbies, or were you more just like a consumer of life and just kind of doing your thing?
A little bit of both, right? So my time spent in Harlem was with like the first 4 years of my life. Like I was only like up to, I started first grade when I was in Queens, but I was in like kindergarten and preschool at Harlem. Okay. But I have vivid memories of being in Harlem. One of them being in preschool, I had a music class where they would, they just let the kids play on like drums and like shake fucking tambourines and shit like that. But I absolutely loved it. I have a very traumatic memory of one time, whoever was in charge, I'm not going to call him a teacher because I don't know what the fuck you teaching in preschool, but they wouldn't let me go to music because I didn't color in an apple the right way. Like how you tell a kid that I was like coloring in an apple, and they said because I didn't, how crayons sometimes they have like the little white spaces between the fucking, because you didn't do it like, and they were like, nah, you got to fill all that in before you can't go to music class. And I fucking cried my
coloring book, fucking Hitlers and shit. Like Please. What?
So upset. But I was artistic. I always like drawn things, and I don't know whatever I could get into. My mother was super creative too. She would like tell us stories and use our little like action figures to tell the stories and shit like that.
Okay. Actually, that's really cool.
Yeah, but to throw a little trauma into this whole thing. So what happened is my mother, it was the 80s. I don't know if you know about the 80s a lot, but there was a lot going on. Some of what was going on was narcotics. And my mother eventually ended up leaving me and my brother at my grandmother's house in Queens, which is how I ended up being in Queens. And then I spent most of my life, most of my childhood out in Queens with my grandmother and not with my mother. And that was like sort of an interesting upbringing because I didn't like, this is y'all gonna get some shit.
That's what we're here for.
I didn't get a replacement for a mom. You know what I'm saying? Like there was no, I technically look at myself as like not having a mother or a father because there was no like replacement. I had like aunts, uncles, and my grandmother, and they all did fantastic at their appointed positions. Like my grandmother was amazing. My aunts and uncles like were amazing, but nobody really like stepped up to be like a mom or whatever. So like for a good part of my childhood, I would say I was like super in my head in the clouds, like no sort of like active involvement in my own life. Just kind of like, all right, well, I'm existing and I guess I'll continue to do that. Like, you know,
going from thing to thing.
Yeah, just doing what people told me to do. It's like, yo, go to school. It's like, all right, I guess so. Why not?
Go to school. Yeah.
Right. You know, with no sort of like thought about what I wanted to do or what, you know what I'm saying? Or just any interaction.
Yeah, that's big though. I mean, like this is the kind of shit where it's like, I guess when I hear stuff like that, it's mad different than a little bit where I come from. And sometimes it's really helpful to hear these kinds of stories because they add that like layer of context to realities that a lot of us don't get exposed to, so that we can have a better perspective of things.
Perspectives. That's when you look at the camera.
Most people don't have, not everybody has like a mom and dad, you know, like like growing up in New York City, I know that like as a child of both my parents are around and still married, and I'm in their household, and all 5 of me and my siblings are all from the same mom and dad.
Wow.
I was in the rarity.
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean? Like most of my friends weren't like that, you know? And like growing up in the projects, it was, you know, looked at like
that's super rare even today.
Your dad, you know, like your dad's
right.
You got a dad. Your dad
and it's the same.
He drives. Like he drives. He has a car. Like what? I was the like rich friend.
Right. In the same project.
I'm not rich, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm not rich.
Like we live in the same building.
but because of that, because of having my dad and my mom, it was like.
But I guess you were rich in a way, right? Because like
I was rich in
a real way, because like,
and I mean, even beyond that, like, arguably, rich is hella relative, right? So, I mean, what is like, if we want to go down that path, like, yeah, I mean, you can be rich in the same environment, but not rich in the bigger world. So, to the eyes of somebody,
I mean, maybe, but you know, in a very real perspective, I think children who have consistency and people who like install diligence and fucking discipline in them, like that's something that's way more valuable than like your parents having money. You know what I'm saying?
Big facts.
Absolutely.
So I agree with that.
Because what I'll say is like for me, I have a huge imagination and like super creativity, and I think a lot of that comes from like spending a lot of time inside my own head when I was younger. But I will say I am not the most disciplined person, you know what I'm saying? And it has caused the issue in my life, and I it's nobody's fault. Well, that's a lie. It is people's fault, but you know, I own it. But like when I was younger, nobody really told me to do nothing. You know what I'm saying? There was nobody who was like, yo, you have to do this. It was kind of like, you alive still? Good.
But it's also like it's an interesting point you make though about like about the structure, because like I said, richness is relative, right? Like to me, it's not in my head like wealth per se. I mean, because I've seen the opposite. I've seen people who come from like money, and they're in the exact same position that's coming from poverty in that regard, because there's no discipline. There was never a reason to care. And literally what you're describing, in a sense, the vacant, like nobody cared, nobody interacted with me type shit. And that shit's real. And like it's everywhere. So it's just cool that you shared that. And that's like, I guess it's part of your existence. So it's a relevant part of the story.
Of his DNA now. You know what I mean? The
but
DNA
still,
of his life.
Bold to state it and put it out like that.
I mean, it's interesting. I understand people think it is bold, but I just like, what happened is what happened. You know what I'm saying?
What happened is what happened. I feel the same way.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to fantasize anything in my life. You know what I mean? Like it is what it was. So like if there does end up being like a thing where like, what? It's like, I mean, that's just what happened. You know what I mean? Like it's not about like, same as like the negatives are just like this is just what happened.
Right. I'm not trying to spin some story to like have it be deeper than it is, but I'm also not trying to like pretend like it wasn't anything. But at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, that's my story. Like I can't go back and rewrite it. You know, I can only tell it.
Just gotta own your story.
Right.
So I guess as you're going through Queens and you're like kind of, I guess, floating through the situation. I don't know how else to put it. Floating through. When does it start to like pick up? But more importantly, at one point in this floating, do you discover like music? Does that like pick up during this age, or is that like a later on thing?
So my brother, me and my brother get dropped off at my grandmother's house in Queens, and we both adjust to it differently. He, finds a group of friends and starts like smoking and like hanging out and shit like that, and kind of rebelling against like the situation. I like sort of become a super introverted in my head and kind of like, I'm lost in the sauce. I peep what's going on. I don't think. And my brother like started sort of, me and his relationship suffered a little bit, right? Because now I'm the little brother who's like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm just trying to follow him everywhere he goes. And he's like hanging out and doing things like, that I'm not like, part of. And he's like, you cramping my style, kid. Like, we out here smoking weed. You ain't smoking weed. Like, get lost. You know what I'm saying? So because of that, though, we still shared a room. He would listen to hip hop all the fucking time. All the time. Like, and this is when, this is like late 80s, early 90s. So like, he's like bringing home all the mixtapes with all the like the Nas records here and there and whatnot. And I fucking hated it. I hated it so much. Because he would wake me up in the morning with this shit.
Word.
He would wake me up. I'm like,
it's just you gotta like. I don't know if anyone was expecting that. Like, this is Baxter. Wordz.
Well, this is the funny thing about this.
It's the opposite.
This is the funny thing about it, especially if you see my brother today. The funny thing about it is because I went the opposite. So whatever he was doing, I was doing the opposite. So he was smoking weed, so I wasn't. So he was listening to hip hop, so I got into like alternative rock and shit like that. So I was like crazy into like Green Day, Alanis Morissette, all that shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? But Nas, it was written, I Gave You Power. I heard that, and I was like, that's dope. You know what I'm saying? That gave me reason to pause. I was like, all right. And then my friend.
What? Sorry, before you keep going, what was it about that track that?
Just the fact that it was so creative. You know what I'm saying?
So give people right, because a lot of people might not
that.
know.
All right,
what?
Yeah,
you're absolutely right.
About,
we got you on that. Wait, I want to hear the Baxter version.
So there is no internet in the 90s, right? So it's like, there's no context, there's no research of things, and a lot of the hip hop that my brother was listening to was like, Nas and Jay-Z and like guns and drugs and shit like that. And it wasn't my, and it was like street shit that like maybe he related to more because he was out hanging out with his friends and I wasn't, right? So like none of that shit really like spoke to me. But Nas has a song called I Gave You Power where he raps from the perspective of a gun. Like, he's the gun. You know what I'm saying? And also just Nas as an MC is so, he's so, what's the word? The pictures he paints are so vivid, The language he uses is very poetic. And that like super attracted me to that song. So even though it's still about gun violence, but it's about it in a way that like I've never heard any MC except for Slick Rick. I always fucked with Slick Rick. But besides Slick Rick, I never heard any MC approach, shit like that before. So then that like opened me up. So I would say that would be the moment I was like, I don't hate it. I definitely don't hate it. And yeah, so then I was open to like hearing more shit after that. I didn't start rapping though until DMX came out with Get At Me Dog. And I remember being in a car. It was me, my friend Andre, and my friend Jacob, who we was in a rap group together at first. The Get At Me Dog, the single, had the instrumental on it. You know what I'm saying? So like motherfuckers do when the instrumental comes on. started freestyling to it. So it was we always was rapping to it, and my friend Jacob was like, "Yo, but we just playing around. We ain't doing this for real." And I was like, "Why the fuck not?" Right, exactly. Like, why can't we be doing this for real? So then, like, we just started writing raps, and if, like a lot of motherfuckers at the time, like, it was mad fictitious, like guns and drugs and shit that like I had no fucking real relation to. But you know, that's what the cool rappers were rapping about these days. But I started going to open mics out in Long Island and any ones that I could find in Queens. But as a
how old were you around like all this? So like when
great question.
I would say this is like high school, so like maybe 18, 19.
18, 19, when you're like, are we not rapping? Should we not be doing this?
It's hard for me to remember because, first of all, time, my perception of time is all fucked up. I met.
But what we can do is Google when Get At Me Dog came out.
Absolutely. But I met my friends.
Which is 98.
Yeah, that's about right. That's high school. I graduated in 99.
Okay, so you're like, wait, you guys graduated 18? Or
I don't
17?
fucking remember.
I don't know. Was it about your late teens?
We're like the same age.
You're in like the fun part of like, okay. You're in the fun part of teenage life.
Yeah. My boy got a car. He's got a fucking.
Thanks for the bits.
He's got a gold Acura Legend. We're driving around, fucking drinking and driving, which you kids shouldn't do, and bumping fucking DMX and rapping our faces off, yo. It was fun. And my boy, he worked at Rye Playland, which was.
Tell the world about Rye Playland.
Rye Playland is. I always think about it, and I could be wrong about this, but this is my perspective. It's like the Coney Island of upstate New York. You know what I'm saying? You know, Coney Island. It's like this. It's like this shitty amusement park, but it's got some rides.
And you got some rides.
It does.
Go there.
Right.
In droves.
Right. And you go in facts. And it's got one wooden roller coaster. That's it.
A wooden roller coaster that is very sketchy.
How far up does it take to drive there?
It's not that long at all. Like when my boy couldn't have the car, we would or when he was already at work, we would take the train from Port Authority, not Port Authority, the other joint, Grand Central, and it would be like maybe a half an hour. It's like right above New York City. It's not that far.
Okay. All right. It's fair enough.
Yemi's in the comments mentioning how like somebody died on that. You know what I mean? Somebody died
on the Rye Playland joint.
I'm not sure which one she's talking about, but like
the Dragon. Yep, that's it. That's the one. I'm not surprised.
Not surprised. Let me tell you.
Nah, that's wild.
But me and my boys, we was rapping. We had a group called Hand to Hand. That was the name of the group, which people don't know is a drug reference. I will say it again. Selling drugs was not my forte.
I'm like, yo, for who I know you to be.
All this wildly out of character.
Like really very out of character. I'm like, you gotta behave yourself, Baxter. Like, what's going on?
I mean, I was out in Queens. I didn't know what was going on.
You were young and a New Yorker in the fucking 90s. Like we grew up in a very I mean, I consider myself privileged with everything in my life. You know what I mean? Like I'm privileged for everything. And I feel privileged to have grown up in the era that we grew up in.
Absolutely.
Right? Like we grew up in an era where like we got wild old school, but we're not like the internet. The internet
showed up,
came around, and we weren't like what is this?
Right. We got cell phones while we were still kids.
You know, exactly. I was a teenager with the brick Nokia.
Yeah.
With the fucking Snake game on it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But also to put it into context, one, like I'm out, like the part of Queens that I'm from is like not. It's absolutely positively 100% New York, but
it's not.
Trains don't go there.
Type of New York. No,
like trains don't go there. So and it's super suburban.
That part of Queens, there's a majority of the people own homes that they live in, and that is very rare for your average New Yorker. Most of us grow up in an environment where
with buildings and apartments.
We live in buildings and in apartments. Like rare is the land in New York City that's dedicated to homes. Queens and Staten Island tend to take up a majority of that home ownership space.
Right.
There's homes in the Bronx, in Brooklyn.
It's certain parts.
Even in Manhattan. There's homes.
When you get away from the trains, that's when that shit starts like becoming super suburban and residential. Yeah. But so the part of Queens I'm from is like super secluded. Nobody from there really, people in Queens act like the rest of New York doesn't know how poppin' Queens is. when everybody knows, like, it's not. But they act like there's no.
I just went to New York City. It was made clear to me that there's not a lot to do in Queens on your first trip, and it's probably not what you're going to.
But it depends on what part of Queens you're going to.
There's things to do. Okay, don't misquote me, Holden, because everybody knows that you're talking about me right now. Okay, goddamn it. Listen, I didn't say that there's nothing to do. I said that there's not a lot to do, right? And that it's gonna take up the whole day doing it. And that really there's cooler things and relative things to what there really is in other places.
I mean, there's things to do and there's reasons to go, but like Flacco said, like especially my part of Queens, it's like I got to take the train to the last stop.
Yo, that's the asshole of New York City. Like
I used
to live on in Richmond Hill, off of the leopard stop of the A, which is the last stop.
I know it.
Of the A in the other direction instead of Far Rockaway. And that was when you live that deep in Queens, you no longer participate in New York City.
That's what I'm saying.
Like,
but the ill thing about
living is just there, and people like you party there, and people act like the littest party is there.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It's like they act like the rest of New York City is missing out, and I'm like, not know what's going on.
You know, Manhattan is still Manhattan.
Right. Like everybody else is connected, right? There's trains. But to say that, so like, me and my peoples, we was riding around rapping. There's no internet. So the only hip hop I had ever seen was like the radio. You know what I'm saying? Is like what was actually popping at the time is like Rough Riders, Jay-Z, and all that shit. So it wasn't until I started hitting open mics and things in the city that I started seeing like, oh, you can rap about whatever you want and you could be yourself. Like, you don't have to like.
That's actually huge. Because you're the first person I talked to, I guess, from Queens really like that. So it's interesting to hear how disconnected you are from everything, right?
I mean, yes and no, though, because like I said, super rappers come from my little neighborhood out there.
Well, you didn't say that on the show.
Oh yeah, absolutely right.
Yeah, you didn't say that yet on the show. That was before. But even still, is within that the context, you're like just saying like, I was exposed to the radio, whereas other people be like, nah, I walked outside and the block be playing everything hot, right?
And
so by comparison, to me, it sounds a little more disconnected than say the vibe of the city.
I mean, the block was playing everything hot, but DMX was hot. Jay-Z was hot. I'm just saying, like, and it's so crazy because I live so close to Linden, but like Tribe Called Quest wasn't in the rotation as much as like in the 90s that I grew up in was like super gangster rap music all the time. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it wasn't until like I seen. We brought his name up earlier before the show, like a Fresh Daily, who like, rapped about being fresh. You know what I'm saying? I was like, oh, word. Like, I just have to be me and make that shit dope. Which that didn't come later, but going to EODUB, does your audience know what EODUB is? They have to, right? I don't have to explain that.
I mean, at this point, we would just run it. We go through it. It's not worry about what they know.
Okay.
Worry about the story of Baxter Wordz.
So I remember I was going out to these open mics in Long Island, all the way out in Long Island, like fucking Roosevelt Field area, because I used to work at the mall out there, and I got a flyer for an open mic in the city. I don't know if it was EODUB or if it was just at the Pyramid, but it was in the city, and this is when I was driving around in a black Dodge Neon, breaking the speed limit every chance I could, and then I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna start going out to the city. The first time I went, my boys came with me that I rapped with. Maybe the second time, but after that, they wasn't really like trying to go, and I was like, well, fuck it, Am I gonna go by myself?
Going.
And the answer was yes. I would go every chance I got. If I knew there was an event, I would go to it, and I would like rap every fucking second I could. And this is how I sort of got into EODUB, right? Like I wasn't part of the structural part of EODUB, but I just would go.
Just for the sake of it, in case we didn't say it, EODUB does stand for End of the Week.
End of the Week, longest running weekly hip hop open mic in New York City that was not running that long at the time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it started in 2000. So I think I started going maybe like 2002.
Oh wow, that's still really early.
Yo, relatively speaking, you are as close to OG as the OGs can get as far as the End of the Week fam goes.
Oh no, I'll take that.
OG. You're EODUB triple OG.
But you know what it is? But my peers are the other OGs who are longer than me.
Yeah, but but you're thinking about like the founders. Like
exactly.
Not many people.
Yeah, but like founders is like a tier above maybe OG. But as far as the OGs go, you're like right there.
No,
like
you're
I agree
again, because I would be OG. Right, but you'd be triple OG.
Facts.
I came around like in the 2000s.
Your name comes up when people talk about End of the Week. Thanks to all those other people.
I agree, but my thing is that because everyone that I run with, everyone that I sort of hang out with has been there before me, it never feels that way, right? Because I'm like, yeah, remember this? And they're like, remember when fucking we were in the back of a pickle shop or some shit? I was like, no, I don't. I wasn't there for that. I'm sorry.
That's hilarious. Like, it's a hilarious idea still, but like, because I can see how that conversation goes. But like, it's still like, yeah, no, you're still there. Like, you come in and like Baxter's in the room, and you're basically a big zoo as far as anybody else is concerned.
I don't know about that. I'll be a Vanguard and a Jess James, but big zoo.
You know what though? Like, I'm saying like when you come in, like I come in, because I don't really know what the fuck End of the Week is before. Like, I mean, I know it exists in my city. Then one day, Basics is like, yo, could Big taking over a Zoom? Let's all show up. So I showed up. And that's it. Before that, there's no End of the Week in my life. This is 2020. Yeah. Bro, as far as I'm concerned, what's the difference between a Baxter and a Big Zoo? You could argue talent. No. I'm just giving you a perspective.
Perspective. No, I mean, you're right. It's just from my perspective, it's hard for me to like own that. But started going to End of the Week. That became like religiously the open mic I went to. I would go. Would go to everything. So I'd go to Freestyle Mondays. I would go to Wordz and all that.
You gotta tell people about.
Yeah, we got okay. So there's a couple parts we're gonna delve into, Mark, because this is one lane, and we gotta maybe run it back at some point. But break down the various open mic things, because keep in mind, not everybody comes from New York City, nor has any idea, nor can you Google Freestyle Monday.
Not even. I'll do you one better, right? We're like, so you're saying this thing on Monday at End of the Week, right? At End of the Week, that's the name of the place, right?
What
End of the Week is the name of the actual place.
Yeah, End of the Week on Sundays.
Yeah. No, wait, so I'm baiting you with like bad information, right?
Oh, like, got you. Facts.
It's
so
like the venue's not called End of the Week.
Right.
End of the Week was a show that would happen on Sundays.
Yeah.
So let's set the scene. It's 2000s. It's the 2000s in New York City, right? The internet is brand new, so nobody knows how to use it, nor do they care to use it.
New Yorkers definitely did not care.
Right, because we was on the ground where the shit was happening.
We were with millions of people.
You were the shit we were Googling.
So right, New Yorkers. And this is the thing. Like there was tiers of hip hop, so it's like you ain't gonna see Jay-Z you might see Jay-Z in the street actually, but like. You could go out and see a Talib Kweli. You could go out and see Mos Def or these motherfuckers like actually rapping. And the only way you could ever be known as somebody good for rapping was to get up out of your house and go rap everywhere. It's the only way you could happen. There's no internet. You can't rap and put a song out.
You had to defeat everybody. It was like a game. It was like Grand Theft Auto, right?
And at the very least,
the mission is every time to go somewhere and rap
and
be better than everybody.
Right, and even if you lost, even if you weren't as good as like everybody else, you could get respect for just showing up, for just continuing to show up and do the thing. Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Which today, I've seen it. And I host open, so people don't know. I host End of the Week. I've hosted it since like 2014 to before the pandemic. The new generation, they don't have that sort of same resolve. They don't need it, but they don't have it. So it's like they come out to an open mic, and if they don't do good, they just never go to that open mic again. They either find a different open mic, or they just go to the internet and find their fan base, which is dope in its own right. But in the 2000s, the only way you could build a fan base, the only way you could fucking do anything is by going out and rapping. Now, what also would happen is there would be select events that would happen on specific days, and these events would be very territorial over the day and the location of which they happened. So, end of the week had Sunday nights. So Sunday night, if you was looking for some hip hop, you would go to the Pyramid Club on Avenue A. That's the spot for hip hop. If any other event popped up on a Sunday, the people from End of the Week would go to that event and shut it down. You know what I'm saying? That's how.
Hold up, pause. I've talked to a lot of End of the Week people, and this is where the triple OGs are better than the founders. Is all I'm trying to say.
I'll tell you a few things. One, I know for a fact that Big Zoo and definitely went to a place and battled people to shut their shit down and did that. I also know, and did you guys ever interview James Bond?
No, we didn't. We will do that actually. Now that
if you interview James Bond, don't tell him who gave you this information, even though it's recorded. But
no,
ask him.
Has to watch the show to know.
Ask him why they call him James Bond, and it ain't because he smokes weed.
Okay.
But anyway, but yeah, that's how territorial people was. So what people organizations would do with any couth or credibility is they would pick a day and they would have their things. So Freestyle Mondays was on a Monday. End of the Week was on a Sunday. There'd be like a Thursday joint. There'd be like a Tuesday joint. A Lyricist Lounge would have a joint. I think Wednesdays was a New Eurekans thing that they did. I think they had like Wednesday and Saturday or something like that. And a young fucking kid from Queens who just, started coming to the city. I was going to all of them, all of the time. I'm like, if people's rapping there, I'm showing up. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I built a relationship with like a lot of different crews, which, came in handy when I started hosting End of the Week because I could like bring things in. But like, I know all those Freestyle Monday people. I know all the. Now it's like different crews. It's like Supreme Bars is another event that happens nowadays, and Legendary Ciphers and whatnot.
But like the main thing is that in the era of the grind, instead of like a lot of people picking the one that you went to once a week, you were just so enthusiastic about it. You went to everything all the time.
All the time, yeah. And you had to.
But I got another question because we got to run it back a little bit. This is a lot. Let's say we've gone down the performing lane of Baxter and how you were promoting yourself. Yeah. Were you making tapes? Were you making music this whole time? Or was it just like you was out there with the songs and like performing and whatnot? Tell us a bit about like how the trajectory of your song work and whatnot went.
So a lot of my experience is live. Like I've performed at who knows how many shows in my lifetime, especially after I started hosting End of the Week. And I've recorded a good amount of music. I think the first person I like recorded probably a Baxter song is probably Just James, to be honest with you. In his studio that he had off the Bruckner. I don't know, it was him and this brother by the name of C Spit opened a studio off the Bruckner, and a lot of them.
What's the early? Bruckner?
The Bruckner is like a highway street.
Street in the Bronx.
The South Bronx.
Okay.
A boulevard, technically.
Expressway, Bruckner Expressway. It could be a neighborhood too.
No, like Bruckner Boulevard. It's Bruckner Boulevard.
Okay. But Jess had a studio out there, and a lot of my first music was recorded there. But more than that, I would always perform live, which is where a lot of my experience comes from. So I would say that I'm a pretty good live performer.
So you're doing like freestyling then mostly? Was it just like off the dome shit? So
Both.
was it more, or was it like you had like songs written, you had like beats and shit, and you would perform it, or like
both? So like, you know, at EODUB, what would happen is you could sign the list to do a song, but if you didn't make that list, and I think there was like 20 spots to do that, there was a rap with the DJ list. So if, let's say I was number 21 on the fucking line, I'm not going to be able to do a song tonight. So I would have to sign the rap with the DJ list. And you only get like one verse. And if you're dope, maybe you get a second verse. So like, you know, you don't know what beat you're going to get. So like, it behooves you to be able to be dexterous. It behooves you to be able to freestyle.
That was great. No, but like what I think is like extra interesting in what you said, because like so sometimes I come into this game in like 2012, so I'm entirely on that internet tip. I did go perform live, but like honestly, if I had to try, there were always other routes for me. So kind of like what you think.
That's what happens, you know.
But like coming into that, I had no idea why people were mad at that shit. And so the more I go through hearing what other people, like what the game was like in terms of actually being out there, why freestyling is so respected by people, why so many of these different things are I guess, respected. It's almost like being this gauntlet. Like I was watching like
absolutely
finals thing that just happened where Basics came through and you know, brought Montreal into it a little bit. But like, and I was watching just the level of them, like and I was like, damn, this is like a proficiency in terms of like the amount of hours that each person has put into this, just practicing their ability to be like crisp off the dome, to deliver the perfect, you know, it's like you see, and it's not necessarily songs. It's just a whole different thing.
Well, what I'll say about that is I think some of the frustration is misguided, right? I think the older generation always gets upset when the younger generation has things easier than they had it. And they want them to like struggle just as much. It's like DJs. There's like, you ain't have to carry no crates. It's like, goddamn right. I have a hard drive. Why would I carry crates? Like, just because? Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, no, they created the technology that made things easier for me. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do it that way. You know? So it's like, I don't think people should be upset that people choose to use the internet to their advantage. But what I will say is like, there is something that's saying like your toolbox, like you have a toolbox with tools that you can pull out. Right. So it's like, you like the live performing route wasn't for you, but what do you do when you need to perform live? You know, what do you do when you find yourself in that position where it's like, someone's like, yo, you a rapper? Can you perform here? You know what I'm saying? Now you got to like learn an entirely new skill that you don't have, or you don't have to the same degree, you know? So it's like, I think there is something to be, there's value to performing live as much as there's value to knowing the internet, and there's value to being freestyle. Like everyone doesn't have to be Osiris Anthem or Basics or the best freestyler in the world. But let's say you're a rapper, right? And you get a chance to rap, like just you're out and about and someone's like, yo, homeboy here is da from whatever label, or he's in NFTs or cryptocurrency. It's just an opportunity. And he's like, yo, rap a little something, right? And like, you know, a song might work, but maybe like a little freestyle might work. Maybe just like a little fucking wordplay about what's in the room and like what he's wearing or some shit like that. So being able to pull that out of your toolbox only helps you for whatever situation you can come up in. You know, it's like if you're a boxer and you got an ill right hook, it's like, it don't hurt to work on your jab. It don't hurt to work on like other shit, you know?
But even like on that note, like I didn't really care that much about freestyling when I was younger. I'll be until the end of the week, I didn't really give a fuck about freestyling. I was actually watching y'all and then thinking about participating in the challenge and what that would take. And I'm like, oh, son of a bitch. I actually have to think about some of this shit differently. It was kind of, so I started caring about it more. But like, yo, there were actually times, because I did perform a lot. I got lucky. I got booked one time, and if you do an ill live set, you will get booked again. That's what I learned. People will remember that and bring you back.
Absolutely.
But you know where I did not do the best was outside the bar with all the rappers when everybody's freestyling. I was not impressive in those moments. I learned to shut the fuck up because I was probably not going to sound cool next to these guys. And ultimately, that probably had opportunity cost I was unaware of at the time because you're not flexing like you're supposed to. Whereas now, all right, I'll take the circle, whatever. We got to do what we got to do.
And then, but what happens then with that, right? Like, do you, and I'm the royal you, not specifically you. And this is why EODUB created so many beasts of MCs, because it's like, there's two responses, right? One response is like, oh man, this ain't how I can do it, so I'm gonna just stick to what I'm good at, right? But in the 2000s, there was no I'm gonna stick to what I'm good at, because this is it. This is all you got.
Yeah,
so you got to come back and be better or not. And like, some people never came back, but like a lot of people, like I remember, so at EODUB, there was this secret way that the host would tell people in the know that the person on stage was whack. They would never ever. EODUB, they'll try to say that they're always positive and they never call people whack. I'm here to tell you, not exactly true.
That's a lie.
If someone was on stage and they weren't doing their best, and this has never been said on out loud on the internet, so maybe I'm fucking up, but whatever.
Triple OG shit.
What would happen is they would put their fist up, they would make eye contact with the people that they knew, and they would wait for a moment in the song and they would go, yes. And then the people in the know knew that meant the person on stage was not it. And the person on stage didn't know, so they thought they was just getting hyped up, and people in the audience didn't boo. So it didn't make the atmosphere negative, but the indoctrinated, the esoteric, they knew what was going on. You know what I'm saying? But me being as insightful as I was, I knew that. So one time I was rapping on stage and I saw them put that fucking fist up and I was like, no. And I started rapping my fucking heart out, yo. I went ham. And then I was like, yo, that's never happening to me. Like ever. Well, again, but you know what I'm saying? And like, I kept coming back and I kept fucking rapping my fucking heart out.
Yo, but even that's an interesting point, right? Like to the objectivity of end of the week, because it's not like you're gonna get this favoritism tip. It really is.
Absolutely not.
At night, people are feeling you. You're gonna do it, but you could be golden boy every single week. But if you're not feeling it and they know it, you're gonna maybe get the fist type thing. That's power.
I mean, yeah, but that's the training ground. It's like nobody got booed, but you definitely didn't get the love that some, like if you weren't good, you weren't getting that love. Like we might hang out with you at the bar, we might you could kick it definitely, but like there's certain people that were so good, if they stepped in the room, they were getting called on stage to rap, list or no list, and the idea is to get to that level where if you walk into the venue and they see you, they're like, yo, get on stage and rap, and then other people see that and they're like, yo, how do I get to that level? And it's like, there's only one way, is when you get your chance. When you get your chance to rap, you fucking body it. That's it. That's the only way, And like the age that I was coming up in, like I don't even feel no way about me almost getting the yes, because like I'm rapping next to fucking Immortal Technique and Poison Pen and Pumpkinhead. I'm rapping next to people who are getting signed to labels and becoming. I literally, if people don't know who Immortal Technique is I would say one of the most famous indie rappers.
I'm fairly certain anybody that's ever gonna consume this probably knows who Immortal Technique
is. Yeah.
When I say like when young Baxter would drive around to every show all the time, go to everything, I saw Immortal Technique at every fucking show that I went to, no matter how big or how small it was. He would show up, he would body it, and then he would sell copies of Revolutionary Volume 2. And I was like, yo, the only other person I've seen who had a hustle on par with that is like Homeboy Sandman, who also was everywhere doing everything. You know what I'm saying? But like Tech was everywhere. Like, you know what I'm saying? But like, that's how it was back in the days. Like you would go out and you would have to rap against these people. Like, if you ended up in a cypher outside, there's a good chance Immortal Technique might have been in that cypher. Poison Pen, Pumpkinhead might have been in that cypher. And what are you going to do? Step away and not rap? Like, or you got to get good, get better as quick as possible.
as quick as possible.
That is absolutely not the world I come from. So it's like, you hear that shit and you're like, no. But to be fair though, there are people of a certain age, and there actually a lot of them are my age. But because I only started rapping in my mid-20s proper, I didn't take it seriously. I don't have that era to go through. I come in later on. So it's like, nah, a lot of people went through that in Montreal too with their relative stuff. It's just the names aren't as big, but the overall grind is actually really comparable because, you know, Montreal does like to bite New York a little bit, if I'm being real.
Everybody bites New York a little bit.
It's just kind of how it goes. And we're like close enough to really like, yo, I was in New York when I was 10 for like 3 months and I brought back the culture, yo. Like, I hear that shit. That's what happens when I do this with Montreal people.
Like
that happens all a lot everywhere, kind of.
Right.
No,
like
but
everybody
for real,
kind of, you know, that's
especially if like if you were like in New York in the 90s at all, and you happen to be like in a hood for like 4 weeks with your boy, and you saw like anything or bought any record or copied any music videos and shit, you got it like 2 years before Montreal did. And like, bro, this is, and I'm not knocking this, but this is like a badge of honor to people. Like, yo, I went to New York. That's a badge of, all of a sudden, like, it doesn't matter. People were like liking that shit that don't pay attention to me just because you went to New York, bro. It doesn't matter.
I mean, yeah, that's
listen.
It works both ways. But also that's like a New York thing. Like whenever,
we're always on the cutting edge of everything happening at all times, to the point where sometimes New York gets behind an artist from somewhere else before their own region gets behind that artist.
Yeah.
And New York kind of sets a tone, and everybody's always kind of late behind us. I just finished going to Montreal in 2019, 18, 19, and 19. And when I went, they were playing like I was at spots and like cars were driving by and they were playing like Cardi B's Bloody Shoes. And I'm like, this is like a year late, fam.
Word.
Like, why are you
we're
just
done with
now
this.
getting, but that's the rest of the world.
That's how it is though, because we only like get it once it's big.
That record, because New York made it so big and New York made it so, you know, and so we'll abandon the record. 6 months later, the rest of the world is like, yo, this record is popping. And it's New York is like, oh, we're already done with that.
Right.
We've moved on. Like, this is, you know.
And you know what else is crazy? Speaking of the 2000s, is like the mixtape game in New York was crazy too.
Crazy.
Because like if you look at the way people look at 50 Cent, like the way people look at 50 Cent, sometimes I have to remind myself that they don't know about his, like 50 Cent has been an artist long before he met Eminem and Dr. Dre, and has like so much music and history, right? And like a lot of that, like everyone in New York was sort of on because of like the mixtapes and all that. So he was like signed to Sony Records. He had music with J-Lo and Beyonce and all crazy shit, you know what I'm saying? Even before the whole Shot 9 Times thing. But every time I hear people talk about 50 and they talk about the beginning of his story is like, oh, when M found him. Right. Yeah. And I'm like, when M found him, like, nah, fam, like you don't know about God's plan, you don't know about all that other shit he was doing, Power of a Dollar, but like New York.
Actually, no, nobody does. I reviewed Garage Should I Trying, and I got a comment on this like on my video the other day, and he's like, well, why does none of the reviewers ever cover Power to a Dollar? Like, and then you think about it, it's because none of the people who cover this kind of shit actually dive into 50s past for some reason. I feel like,
I mean,
because
you know,
he has the one album,
funny.
nobody ever like, and I don't mean he doesn't have it, but in the eyes of like a lot of people, he has the one album that's hot, and everything else is not hot to most people in the instant perception of 50.
I mean,
Massacre gets like some love.
I was gonna say dragging a little bit because Massacre was like a lot of people considered that a classic. Still, I did not.
Yeah.
I was already done with Fit by the time Massacre was coming out, right? Because I had, like Baxter said, I rode the whole ride. You know
it was a long. He had a long run.
Long run, and it's crazy because I was gonna say actually, he has the reverse of what Eminem has, where like people act like Infinite was a mass-produced album that everybody heard at the time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, bullshit. Nobody heard that shit. Everybody heard it once Napster existed.
Yep.
And kids that like kids like quote Wikipedia about that album, when it's like, yo, but those reviews did not nobody even saw the reviews. Nobody even knew.
Nobody even knew that album existed.
Knew that album existed.
Like, actually, like, again, if you really like look into it,
internet.
It actually, he paid for promo for one of the songs. It was a complete flop. He was depressed after that. That's when he's like writing Rock Bottom and shit, because that album flopped so hard that, like, you know, it didn't.
I mean, and also it deserved the flop too. Like, if we are being honest about it, like, the music he was making there was like generic, and you know, he was copying AZ and people's flows and shit like that, and it was like that shit was not.
That never stopped. Because then he ended up copying Master Ace's flow. So
right, but at least it was more entertaining and more like actual music that put out that you could become an artist with. Like, this shit is like, the Infinite sounds like, oh, you a rapper that goes to open mics, don't you? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh, you've one of 100 rappers who rap. Got it.
Arguably though, anybody that I've ever met that thinks Infinite is his best album is a rapper that goes to open mics type person.
If anybody
like,
says Infinite is Eminem's best album,
bro,
just nod your head and stop the conversation.
But again, the reason I brought it up, right, is like, it's so weird, right? That it is the reverse of 50.
Right. Because 50 has so much.
You don't have to beg people. They're like, wait, we know Eminem's whole. And then you have an artist who is arguably equally as big as Eminem, right? And 50 said that this is a mogul. This is like a incredibly famous, popular person
who's still relevant.
Who's still relevant?
Not for music, but still relevant.
No, I'm sorry. The Power theme song slaps.
It don't slap in people's iPods. It slaps before Power comes on.
I mean, exactly. I have that shit hearted on my anyway.
Okay, I could be wrong.
Point being, right? Like, he fucking like should have the same respect, and people do not.
Yeah.
But here's what it is, and this is another thing that I learned a lot about, honestly, because of this whole experience through end of the week and whatnot, is that mixtape shit. So here's the thing. I can't speak for everybody, but I can certainly speak for being a Montreal white dude from, you know, being born in 87 and shit and coming into that early internet. It's all the studio albums everybody was really grabbing, because that's what you could find. That's what you knew about. Right. And a lot of this mixtape shit was invisible. Like, honestly, invisible to me till at least 2012. And by then, if you're like old and you never grew up with mixtapes, the first time you hear Gangsta Grizzle all over some shit, you're like, fuck a mixtape a little bit. If you're
that's kind of my original point, is like the mixtape game is so crazy in New York that like there's so much shit. Like, I remember hearing you would hear different versions of songs because albums would get leaked way before the album came out. So I heard a completely different version of College Dropout than the actual released version of College Dropout. To the point that sometimes
I heard a super different version of Tragedy Gaddafi's Against All Odds album.
Right.
That did not like there were tracks that didn't ever. There was a
didn't
track
even make
he had
it
with fucking RZA and Cameron. I'm like, you didn't put the Cameron feature, but that's because I'm young and I don't know no better. Then I get to, like, work in the industry, and it's like,
right. Sometimes
you probably couldn't clear. You couldn't clear somebody, and that song couldn't make it for that reason. But the point is, we would hear that like nothing. It was nothing to us. It was
all the time.
It's like, it's wild, because like that's the thing I think a lot of people don't know about, is how like big the mixtape world was and how that culture existed, where like, or even this the reusing of beats, like that shit was weird until I realized. Shit. Like, for me, that was a huge learning curve. Even now, I still have trouble with it. Like, it's not my go-to thing in life. If somebody bodies somebody else's beat, I'm like, cool, but I like the original.
Yo, shout out to J Arms for putting out those mixtapes. But no, but that's how 50 Cent.
Shouts to J Arms. You're the first person in this whole series to shout out J Arms in over a year now.
How to be an MC, yo.
J Arms.
How to be an MC. J Arms was a DJ that only did mixtapes that were the instrumentals of all the songs. And what was dope about J Arms was that like, so he put out like a mixtape, and it was like, okay, this is what's popping right now.
Right now, yeah.
And here goes the instrumentals to it. But then also at the end of the mixtape, it was just these random instrumentals that were like of like songs that were getting put out in the industry that you might have not heard.
Yep.
That were kind of like more crack than the instrumental at the beginning of which was like, oh, I'm gonna rap over in the club like everybody else at the time who's rapping over in the club, or I could rap over fucking what's his name? Jay, what's his name? That battle rap. No, that battle rap then and was from Harlem. He battled against Mook, and he fucking signed to Lil Wayne's Jay why can't I remember his fucking name? He signed to Lil Wayne.
I keep wanting to say J Hood, but it's definitely not J Hood.
No, it's not J Hood. Whatever, J Hood, a J Hood song,
right?
A J Hood song that we
with a dope for the sake of this
beat, you know.
And then he would also do like best of, so he would like best of Biggie Smalls, and we'd be like all fucking just fire Biggie Smalls beats through the whole thing. And for like an MC, remember the internet's not popping. Napster, if it is around, is just new. How else were you ever gonna get your hands on like just a whole fucking shit ton of beats to rap to? You know what I'm saying?
It's like, yo, like, so that's the thing that for me is wild, right? Because since I ever started rapping, it's like, yo, they just been there. There's always been a thing.
They were always
There's
there
always,
for you.
and you're not even just like there was always there. I've just always been able to find exclusives and shit at like reasonable prices and shit. It's never even been
that's
a thought
the reason
to me.
that part of the mixtape game kind of died, where it was like, yo, that's why Drake's and J. Cole's were coming out.
In fact, it was more like I'm watching court cases on copyright at that time. That's really what's going on too. Is like you're realizing YouTube copyright's happening. It's like, yo, so why am I gonna go rap on next man's beat? I don't understand this shit. But then it's like, now it's like having talked to all of y'all and like hearing about the experiences. It's like, okay, this makes sense now. Like to me, it's like the shadow has been lifted and I see the light and shit. But like, yo, it's like I don't think a lot of people, at least that I know, get the opportunity to have these kinds of conversations where it's why it's super cool to hear you put that emphasis on the mixtape game. I mean, or how popping it was, or how influential it was, or how you got beats as a rapper back then. Because, yo, frankly, I don't know how other people did it back then, but I know how people did it in my age, and it's so different. You would never think to look at. Sometimes the problem with Google is you don't know what to Google, not that you can't Google it. So you're providing the what to Googles that a lot of people will never think to Google.
I will also say, shout out to 50 Cent because we went to the same high school, sort of. He went to Andrew Jackson. I went to what Andrew Jackson turned into. Q-Tip was supposed to go to that high school, but his mom was like, nah, because that high school was wild, crazy. It had a heroin ring in the basement at one point.
Shouts to New York City high schools having heroin rings in the basement.
But 50 doesn't get enough credit for mixtapes, period. Like, for like before
he changed the game.
Yeah, because before mixtapes were mixtapes. They were like, I'm gonna put out. Oh, you get a DJ. The DJ puts out a bunch of motherfuckers on one tape, right? 50. I don't know if anybody started doing it before him, but like he would put out.
I'm like, hold on. I'm 90% certain the internet has told me 50 was not the first person to do it, but he is very early on in the process.
He was not the first, but he was like the guy who
successful
carried the flag for it. He was the one that, you know, there were lots of examples of like
the popularizer of it,
right? Yeah, exactly. And
maybe the most successful version of it, right? Because if you follow 50's trajectory, and you know this is good, we're gonna start talking about 50, but whatever. He was signed to a label, like through his own volition. Like the rapper from the hood raps his ass off, gets signed to Sony by himself. No G Unit, no bunch of other motherfuckers. Just him.
No Dr. Dre, no Eminem.
Rapping talent, right? Has beef with other rappers who are more successful than him. They stab him first, right? In the studio, they stab him.
Correct.
They blackball him. They start getting him dropped off of records with people that aren't on his label. He's onto the same label as Beyonce and Jennifer Lopez. He's got songs with them. And they go and they tell the people like, yo, take him off the record. And they take him off the record, right? gets shot up and dropped from his label. Now, that's pretty shitty. You know what I'm saying? Like we talk about Eminem.
Worst week ever type shit.
We talk about Eminem being sad because his record didn't do so good.
Because his mom was like a little bit of a drunk and like
right. You know what I'm saying? Like 50 Cent was almost murdered and blackballed and dropped from his label. And this is when he decides he gets Banks, he gets Yayo. And he just like, I'm going to put it out myself. I'm going to make the music and put it out myself. He probably got one of them J-Arm CDs because he started taking other people's beats.
I promise you he was.
And doing
J-Arm CDs.
But how he flipped it is he would do the whole song. So instead of just like freestyling over the thing, he would like do a hook and everything. You know what I'm saying? And them shits was wild, crazy popular.
They were dope because at the time, like, right, like it was almost like, it was in the vein of parody songs, right?
Right.
So like LL Cool J's song was Love You, I Could Love You Better. And then here comes 50 Cent and he's like, what? Fuck that. I could fuck you better. You know, and everybody in New York City's like, I like the version that's I could fuck you better.
Absolutely.
Than the Candy, non-explicit version,
and also because 50 he's an amazing songwriter, so he would do that. Like he had the song The Quali, and he was like hit him with the double barrel shotty. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's just a clever, funny, dope song.
Yeah.
So, but like them shits got so popular, that's what got into the hands of Paul Rosenberg, Eminem and Dr. Dre's lawyer / manager or whatever, and then that's what like got him sort of signed like that. But like that started.
Actually, Wanksta was what got him signed. Like that was his actual first like if to put it in relative terms, right? That would have been like Pop Smoke with Dior. Like it's your first song that blows.
Right.
Actually, like went.
But it was out way before Get Rich or Die Trying was out.
Get Rich or Die Trying.
No, it's facts.
Way before 8 Mile, the soundtrack, it was playing on New York City radio, and that's what kind of like, it was like, whoa, now this guy's not only is he killing the mixtape game, but he's now got a song that's ready to go national and can, like, if I literally put this on a soundtrack right now, I'm gonna win. You know what I mean? And that was like, that was when he got.
But honestly, everything you're saying sounds like a less formal version of the Robert Greene book about 50 Cent.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. But I want to wrap it around with to say is like, so his success doing that, everybody started putting out their own mixtapes and projects. Like everybody, from like big name artists to like your little fucking hood rappers and whatnot. Everybody was like doing their own like this is whatever they call it, like mixtape. And like it was because of the success that 50 had with his run. Like he got him signed to fucking Dr. Dre. So now everybody, you know, that's how hip hop is. If somebody's successful at something, 12 other people are gonna, like, you know, try to do it too. But there was a time in New York City where it's like you would go, the mixtape guy, he would be either on the corner or he would be at the check cashing place. He would have like a blanket, or they would give him a stall, and it would be bootleg versions of anything that was out. It would be like whatever was out, it would be the bootleg version of that. It would be instrumental CDs, and then it would be like other rappers fucking shit, just like people you might not have ever heard of. Who was the dude? Graf. Graf had a bunch of fucking mixtapes.
Gravy.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Graf is a rapper from Queens that gets a lot of respect from.
Gravy is a rapper from Queens. No, Queens?
I think Brooklyn.
And he played Biggie in the Notorious movie.
Right. Okay. But New Yorkers knew him well before that from like the mixtape. Yeah, from the mixtapes and all that.
Yeah, I just think the whole idea.
Joe Budden was another one that Super always had a mixtape that I would like, be like, I'm not buying this.
Yo, I feel like Joe Buttons rapped. Oh, Paul Kane. He rapped like a bunch of dudes all the time. It was like Joe Buttons and these two other dudes. It was like Joe Buttons, Paul Kane, and I feel like there was another dude.
I always felt like Joe Buttons and Paul Kane were being forced on me. Where I was just like, I don't want this song.
That's because they fucked with
every mixtape. Like,
it was always be at the end of the mixtape too. Because they fucked with Fabulous.
Yeah, facts. They fuck with
That's hilarious.
I think no, it's not. They fucked with Desert Storm. I think it was always like Joe Button, Fabulous, and Paul Kane, and it was always like Fabulous. Anyway,
Fabulous. That's the star out the movie. Yeah, I don't care about these other guys. Yeah.
First time I ever heard Fabulous was on the mixtape. The Desert Storm joint.
Yeah. Like, I mean, at this point, like, I know this is a real thing that was everywhere, and it's like, but it's still like the idea of going to the mixtape guy when, like, all I can remember is going to the music store and copping tapes and then CDs, but like, it was always official releases, right? Like,
nah, fuck that.
It's just wild that there's all this undercurrent of music that just exists.
Mixtape was five
and what the crazy part is it made me realize that anybody I ever liked in music has probably hundreds of songs I'm never gonna hear. Not just like I can't hear them. They're just never gonna happen. Mm-hmm. That fucks me up.
There's certain songs that, like, if you played them in a club to people of a certain age, like, look at this, like Jadakiss, when he did the verses, he did a fucking freestyle. You know what I'm saying? And it's like everyone knows it. Everyone, like, you know, but
if you're a real Jadakiss fan, then you know it.
Right, but like there's no place that you could have gone to hear it if you didn't have the mixtape. Shout out to Dat Piff too, because Dat Piff keeps a lot of those mixtapes alive.
Facts. Dat Piff is the only place that you can still
could probably find some of these
old mixtapes and shit. But a lot of those joints back then, they can't go on these streaming platforms.
Right.
Because of the copyright restrictions, because you're on somebody else's beat, that it is a famous song, and they're just not okaying that. They're just like, no. And then especially because back then, a lot of that shit was like, what were you trying to prove back then was like, I could rap over this song better than the person whose song this is.
Facts.
To which a lot of people felt like a lot of the artists like would say in interviews like, yeah, no, fuck his version. Like, fuck somebody else's version. My shit is my shit. Fuck everybody else's version. You know what I'm saying?
Like,
so, once streaming became a thing and it became like a licensing thing, everybody was like, oh, I don't care about the freestyle. I don't want to get sued over this. And the artist whose beat it was like, yeah, no, fuck you. I'm never fucking signing off on that. So there's this whole catalog worth of music that, like, we all heard that, like, a lot of people just still don't even know exists and shit.
And even
that's the wildest part of it all.
And it's even crazier when you think about beef, right? Because the most disrespectful thing to do when you were beefing with somebody was to take their beat and then violate them on their own beat. Which there's probably hundreds of diss songs that are lost to the ages. It isn't a diss song, but there's even a back and forth between, like, Jay-Z and Joe Buttons, right? So Joe Buttons, he got the pump it up. I think Jay-Z wanted that beat or some shit. So she took it. And he starts the song like, give me that beat, fool. It's a full-time Jack move. Yeah. And then Joe Buttons, being upset, took it back. And then he, like, released another version of it where he was rapping over it. And it's like, you could probably find that someplace on the internet, but, like,
I feel like
that's going to be out there. Plus, it's Joe Budden, which is, I mean, he's not Jay-Z, but he's everything about his life is on the internet.
I mean, maybe, but I guarantee you all of those freestyles ain't on the internet. Like,
there's a whole bunch of, like, still, like, just period stuff that look, Biggie, there's a fucking version of Unbelievable that I uploaded to YouTube like maybe 10 years ago because I just couldn't find it on YouTube. And it's still there because who the fuck has, like, Biggie rapping over fucking what's that? Mad Lions.
Oh yeah.
And it was Unbelievable, but it was before.
That
was the version that he went up to Hot 97 and did, and Flex would always play because it was an exclusive that he had
and shit like that. Like the
if you didn't live in New York City and didn't get, that
right,
the radio signal, you never heard that version of Unbelievable. But all New Yorkers are like, what? That's way better than the regular Unbelievable version.
And they don't even do shit like that no more, yo. Yo, Holden.
Because now all the radio shit's under the same rules and easy to catch type shit.
But Holden, let me tell you something. Like there would be things like, so like when I was a young rapper, like fucking Big Pun, Cannabis, and DMX were everything. And there was a Funk Flex one time had DMX, Cannabis, and Noriega for some reason, all up in the studio. And they're just
Noriega like that. Come on, how's the
first of all, shout out to Noriega. He's a fucking OG. He's a legend.
Arguably, we're not having this conversation without him.
He got hits. He got hits on top of hits on top of hits. He put the Neptunes on. Deserves nothing but respect. But in the room with DMX and Cannabis, Noriega is definitely like, the lowest man on the totem pole.
Not true, because DMX is also not like, super.
DMX got the energy and the style. So, but the thing is,
Noriega
they did the thing.
Style.
Not like DMX.
Brings like a different energy that is different. Like, right? Because
in a
DMX,
cypher.
Look, Baxter, I am with you on DMX, but DMX, as I have come to see it, is what you would call a hit or miss motherfucker. Because
not in his prime. Hold up, whoa. Let's not pretend DMX, when DMX was on top, he was selling multi-platinums, heads and shoulders above people.
Yes,
like people have
everybody.
People have this image that like it was like Jay-Z and DMX, and they were like, it was like
Jay he was selling more records than Jay.
DMX was outrageously popular. So, but like they were at the Funkmaster Flex, and they were just going back and forth with verses. Flex was just throwing on beats, and they were just like seeing who's gonna run out of verses first, and it was like one of the most integral like experiences for me to have like as a young rapper. I listened to that shit like so many times. There's so many Cannabis verses I know just because he was spitting them on that session and not because of whatever song they're from. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But like what Flacco's talking about, like one, it was on New York radio. So if you wasn't in New York radio, you didn't catch that. And two, the only other place it would be was on like a mixtape or something like that. So have you ever heard like a session between like DMX, Cannabis, and Noriega at all?
No, to be honest. I mean, I don't want to get. I'm just like, cause like again, like I come from like, so not only am I in Montreal,
I gotta find that to send
but
to
like
you.
we don't have the net, right? So we got Canadian TV and shit. So we're getting not MTV, we're getting Much Music, which is gonna have a lot more Canadian content on it, bro. Swollen Members was a thing up here, yo. I'm like,
I remember Swollen Members.
They was like they were not big up here.
I know that I found Canadian, out because of Much Music, because Much Music came to like whatever cable situation my grandmother had, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And I found out about them.
New York used to get a lot of
Cardinal Official.
Cardinal did it. Cardinal had this thing.
Media, period.
But it's because
like Kids in the Hall on Saturdays.
Because it's like 30% of all Canada shit has to play all Canadian like media things, radio, TV, whatever. 30% of the music has to be Canadian or get the fuck out of here. So
I mean that's dope. New York should do the same shit, yo.
You gotta understand that's dope now. Okay, that's dope now.
Back then it didn't feel dope.
Yo, back then Canadian quality was a real motherfucking thing, and we all know it.
Y'all probably got better because of it. Imagine if that wasn't the case.
Alanis Morissette's an outlier.
First of all,
Canadian treasure. Canadian treasure.
Baxter's like, first of all, watch how you talk about.
No, I
cut when you put your to go see Alanis Morissette,
bro. When you put that post about the fucking Jagged Little Pill, bro. There is not a Canadian that will argue with you, in my opinion.
There's got to be another dope Canadian besides Alanis Morissette, though. You guys had like a bunch of them, didn't you? I feel like there's like, yeah,
but not necessarily.
You guys definitely got the actors in comedy.
I mean, I'm not feeling Celine Dion. I know she's popular, but she's like not dope at all to me.
Your biggest export at one point.
Big facts.
True. True.
And we got like Arcade.
You guys got comedy on lock. You got fucking.
I'll give you that. We got comedy.
Norm Macdonald, Jim Carrey, Rick Moranis,
Shania Twain.
all right, let's not reach with the on lock, right? There are huge comedy,
You're right.
like haven.
Yeah.
And
on lock is an
Montreal in
exaggeration.
particular, and Montreal in particular is like
just for laughs, baby.
A big haven, like it's one of those
like
it's the northern chitlin circuit, you know what I mean?
Word.
Type shit. Like Montreal is like one of those places that every comedian
has to go
stops at because they know that it's a great.
It's because Just for Laughs is like basically one of the biggest comedy festivals in the world, and Montreal is a city that there's not a celebrity that doesn't want to come partying. So it ends up being like every famous comic will probably.
Yeah, you guys are like the party city. You know what I mean? Like when I got there, I was like, yo, they got fucking XXX fucking
everywhere.
Like everywhere. Where it's just like
massage parlors right in your fucking face. Like, oh, you want to come upstairs?
Speaking of Montreal, though, did any of the people that you've interviewed from EODUB talk about how your city treated us?
Not in the least, yo. Let me know, because I would love to know.
Let me tell you my experience. I'll say this. This is the caveat. I had a fantastic time in Montreal. The rapping was amazing. The city was fucking dope. It was like the last warm day of the year. Had a blast. Fucking, what year is this? This is like 2018, 19. EODUB, New York City. We all get in a fucking a Sprinter van. We're like, yo, let's go up for the Montreal World Finals. Bet. It's like me, James, Vice Versus, Poison Pen, Mozzie, Osiris Anthem. I'm probably leaving some people out too. It was fucking. We went up there, right?
All-star roster.
I think Zoo was with us too. We got 2 Airbnbs, and we like debating like, yo, who's staying in what Airbnb? I'm like, I don't give a fuck. I'm gonna make it work no matter what. So we pull a Sprinter van up in front of one Airbnb, and I forgot who's choosing they're gonna do this. Poison Pen's like, yo, I'm gonna take my bag up. And like, okay, bet. I'm like, I'm gonna walk to the other Airbnb and check it out and decide which one I'm gonna stay at, and then I'm gonna come back for my bag. And everybody's like, yeah, that's the move. That's the move. We walk to the other Airbnb. We figure out who's staying where. We walk back to the van. Osiris is going to the van. Osiris is like,
do you know what part of town you're in? Any idea?
It's by some park.
Okay.
I don't know. But long story short, Osiris is like,
actually, it gives me some clue because I have an idea.
Did you take your bag? And I'm like, nah, I didn't take my bag. He's like, yo, our bags are missing. Yo, Montreal jacked us for all of our luggage. The only person who didn't get their luggage jacked, the only person who didn't get their luggage jacked was fucking Poison Pen. And let me tell you, that is not the way you want to start your trip, fam. Like, you know what I'm saying?
No, it's not.
And I've been all over this world. I've been to fucking. I've been to Jamaica, Trenchtown. I've been to Cuba. I've been to fucking. I've never got violated in any of these places. I go to Montreal first day. That's how y'all treat me.
I can relate to.
I'm not saying my city's as nice as the reputation, bro.
And like one city in particular, some fucked up shit happens. Shit, I'm like, what? We got shot at in Cincinnati, and I'm always like, what? We traveled everywhere. I'm like, bro.
I'm like, from the Bronx.
I'm like, bro, we were fucking being disrespectful everywhere. You would think it would have been Chicago, New Orleans, Miami, or LA, all these places that were like, absolutely, we had our heads on a swivel.
It's because like, you expect it.
Fucking Cincinnati, yo. Fucking Cincinnati.
You let your guard down a little bit.
And you're like, what?
Certain parts of Montreal got certain kinds of problems that encourage the kinds of robbery that may go down in carjackings.
I'm pretty sure it was a setup. Like, it's probably the people who, I'm not gonna say it's people who run Airbnb, but like we pull up with New York plates and it's already, but it was a lesson too. Like, I guarantee you I will not leave my luggage in the car anyplace else for the rest of my life.
That's just like wild. Like when somebody comes there like, yo, your city did this to me. I'm like, you know, it does sound like my city. I mean, as much as like,
imagine how living in New York is, though. I be reading the newspaper like tourists shot dead and tortured. I'm like, damn. Had a rough stay, did you?
We don't go that far. I don't think it's like, I've never read that.
Tourists pushed in front of a train, like, ugh. Don't stand so close to the platform.
But like, that's unfortunate that y'all got robbed in Montreal. That is unfortunate. I would argue that most people don't necessarily get robbed, but that doesn't change what happened to you. It's the story of Baxter. Arguably, since high school, I haven't really been robbed in Montreal that much either. And maybe like if I've been super negligent.
Holden said ever since high school,
Nah, I went to a high school
prior to high school. Let me tell you,
high school. Every February,
every other week
my bus pass got jacked. All 5 years of high school for me. My like, because we have 5 years, it's different. Yeah. Every February bus pass. But it's not but since then it's like, I walk around, never have to worry about it. And then I realized, maybe like, sometimes it's like not the safest world. But you get this like illusion of shit, and then you hear a story like Baxter, and it's like, if I had a car, like, maybe I would get robbed because like I don't have a car, so I don't think about it.
Maybe, but also half of it is luck, half of it is like who you are, and then that's it. Like, I think New York definitely. If you walk around as if you like, I heard Flacco talking about how like he walks everywhere like he owns the place. You have to, because if you look uncomfortable, if you look like out of place, other people notice that shit. That's half of it, though.
That's how New Yorkers can tell that you're not from here, and that's when like the New York like.
But we carry that everywhere, though.
Like kicks in even more high gear, and it's like, I might. You start thinking like things that you don't even, like you'll see somebody and you're just like, should I rob him? I don't even rob people.
Right. Just because he look out of place. Me too.
He
like,
out of place.
Like, I
don't just like walking around and I'm like, hold on. So you're saying people be looking at me like that the whole day?
Possibly. Well, what would happen? Like, I don't rob nobody or nothing like that. But if I was walking someplace and I saw somebody like out of place, I'm going to think to myself, he about to get robbed. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, someone's going to rob him. But
things happen.
I did not get robbed, though. I'm going to put it out there.
I still think to myself, like, man, people should, like, there's, like, a few years back, I made a post, this pre-quarantine, right? So, like, we're talking about, like, probably, like, 2018, and I made a post, and I'm like, it's a Comic-Con. I'm like, all the stick-up kids and robbers on my timeline, y'all should go down there and eat. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of food down there. You know what I'm saying?
Also, if you...
I lied. One time I got held up for some weed. In my bag, I had like a bag, right? I learned don't pull out a bag of weed in public because people don't know how much weed you have. They were so disappointed to find out it was not a zip and it was a 3.5. It was a 8. Anyway, in that bag, I had about $500 worth of magic cards, and because they were unaware that this is the stick-up move, they just took my little 3.5 and gave me my magic cards back.
And you were like, idea. You fools, you don't know what value is.
Well, a little bit. I'm like sitting there going. My wares, my gosh, right? Because that's what it is with magic.
But you know what? If they would have took the magic cards, it would have narrowed down the suspects. It's like I want some. Next time we go to a fucking magic tournament, like the gangsters, motherfucker there.
I'm looking for the gangsters at the magic tournament.
I
don't think that sentence has ever been spoken out loud in the whole humanity, like whole existence.
But you know what?
Magic and humanity.
I will say, shit does like it does. Shit, and especially in New York, like the lines get blurry. Some of the most gangsters motherfuckers I know were all about anime and Dragon Ball Z. You know what I'm saying?
Fact.
1000%.
I mean, I'm gonna go with all the gangsters I've met are about that shit.
All of them. Let me tell you something. That's something that I feel very like bothered by, like with this young generation of like anime
acting
fans.
like it's brand new.
I'm like, like it's brand new. Like they discovered it. Like they made it poppin'. And I'm like, we're the ones who had to be home at a certain hour for shows to continue existing.
Absolutely.
For the network to get the ratings, to keep on making more seasons.
Because if you missed it, you missed it.
Akira, when Akira was like, who the fuck was buying Akira? You
had to go to
buying Akira.
You had to go to the one shop that sold like Japanese movies for some reason. You know what I'm saying? Like, we
did a lot to support
also because
there's no internet.
My brother friend My brother's friend used to give us Dragon Ball Z tapes like it was drugs. He'd be like, "Yo, I got that new Dragon Ball Z movie came out." He's like, "Yo, there's a new Dragon Ball Z movie." He's like, "Yeah, yo, blah 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 blah." And you have to like piece it together to figure out like what movie came before the other one for what reason.
This is so wild to like think about because like I'm not that kid. I used to watch Dragon Ball Z and it was like, bro, this is by far the most boring shit I've ever watched in my life.
What?
I know. I understand it now.
You was like,
but you know what? Hold on.
Let me break this down to you from my perspective.
Holden doesn't like no TV, bro. Like he's
I like guy. A lot. I like TV a lot, but Dragon Ball Z. I watch TV. No, I don't like movies. I like TV shows. I watch all kinds of binge watching and TV shows. I just not a huge movie guy.
Right.
So my experience of Dragon Ball Z is this, because it comes on the one episode, right? You get the half hour or whatever, one episode, and the motherfuckers would talk for like 20 minutes, just talking. And then the next episode, come on, talk for like 20 minutes.
Is this the sub or the dub?
Whatever was on fucking Canadian public television. Bro.
Were they speaking English?
Mad English.
Okay, so yeah, the English one wasn't necessarily.
So you gotta hear that. Then the third episode, more talking, and all this talking is about some fight. Then the fight episode comes and it's like 4 minutes of fight and back to the talking, and then that shit would just repeat for me. And at a certain point, I'm like, I'm gonna claim the ignorance, right? Like I'm not playing like I'm right here, but I could not get into this shit. It just felt like endless talking.
No, that makes sense.
I didn't understand it, and then later on, I got into like more the art styles and actually all the other shit that goes into it. And I was like, okay, I get it now. And then I found out it's deeper than like, what I encountered on television as a young one.
Right.
But like, it is not the easiest entry curve for everyone is all I'm going to say.
Two things. One, shout out to Dragon Ball Z because like that was the first time that I watched, like you watched Goku grow the fuck up. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he was having kids. His kids was getting into the fights and shit like that. There was no cartoon like that in America. There was, He-Man didn't have a kid and the kids started fighting. Like, you know what I'm saying? That shit was super fascinating.
They didn't grow. They stayed
right.
Their age.
Every cartoon, people stay the same. Like, Goku, even, I started from Dragon Ball Z. I didn't even know about Dragon Ball. That was a whole other shit. But like, he had a kid, Gohan. Then that motherfucker started growing up. That he started fighting. I felt like I was part of the family. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yo, actually, that's super interesting. I never thought about it like that one time. Nobody's ever like been like, nah, bro, this is a generational investment.
Facts. People even now is the shit still going. That and also movies was a huge inspiration to me in my childhood period. My grandmother used to take me to Blockbuster Video.
Somebody said the Frieza arc is what I was describing, and that shit was a lot of talking and not necessarily reflective of everything in Dragon Ball Z.
But also when the shit got busy in the Frieza arc, it got busy. Like when Goku and Frieza started fighting, I mean, that shit took forever to talk to. Frieza was like the planet's gonna blow up in 5 minutes, and that shit took 9 episodes. But fuck that. My grandmother used to take me to Blockbuster Video, and she was huge into movies. She would rent everything new. Whatever they had, she would rent it. We would go home, and she would record it on her own VHS tapes. And she had
that's how everybody used to do back then.
Right. My grandmother had a VHS collection that was like over hundreds of tapes big, and each tape had 3 movies on it.
3 movies on it, yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, I went through, that was home.
Right. So, but what it is like she would rent whatever. So like I saw Musica Valley of the Wind from Miyazaki before Studio Ghibli even existed. I was watching like his movies.
I'm not certain I know what a Studio Ghibli is.
Okay, so Miyazaki is an animator from Japan. He's like the Walt Disney of fucking Japan. He did Spirited Away. He did Ponyo. He did My Neighbor Totoro and all that. But he was doing movies before he had his own studio. He did Lupin the Third, the Count of Kostyaksko. I can't pronounce it. And he did another movie called Musica Valley of the Wind. That movie is by the people that would form Studio Ghibli. Studio Ghibli is the name of the studio that makes these movies now.
Okay.
if you go to Japan, they got like amusement parks and all sorts of shit dedicated to Studio Ghibli.
Nah, I mean that shit's like that shit was big. Like I remember, like I was working at a video store when it hit, and it was like everybody I know has watched something of something from that house.
But my grandmother used to just, if it was anime, she'd be like, "This is a cartoon, they'll like it." And we was watching fucking Fist of the North Star.
Fist of the North Star. I remember watching that with my uncle.
All kinds of crazy shit. Dominion Tank Police, Ghost in the Shell. But yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that a lot of this stuff like existed as long back as it did, you know, because I mean, I encountered it when I was in Quebec College, and people would be like hyping it up in anime clubs, and it was like the cool shit at that time and whatnot. But like, it kind of like makes sense when you think about all of these like mixtape acquisition cultures, and just like the fact that like the regular store isn't the only store that you get exposed to a bunch of shit. Whereas honestly, outside of flea markets, the regular store is the only store in most of my life, you know? And that's like a wild difference that I didn't realize existed until I started talking to New Yorkers like that.
Yeah. I mean, you know, New York's an interesting place. To say the least.
To say the least. So let's pick up on the back.
Yeah, because I'll have to say, you got involved at end of the week in the open mic circuit in like 2000 and early 2000s.
Yeah.
You start making music at some point.
Yes. So I started making music. This next part is complicated, and I'm not going to spend too long on it for various reasons. But I got into a rap group. It was me, this girl that I was also seeing at the time, and Radar Ellis. And that went super well. We had like a lot of success very, very shortly. Like, first of all, we were in a group together at the time. We just were two people who like rapped with each other. But like somebody saw us rapping and it was like, yo, you guys are a dope group. And we're like, we're not a group. And they were like, yes, you are. And we got management like really quickly. Like I would say like within a month of us like rapping together. We did a couple of shows opening for Life Jennings and some other stuff. But that fell apart because you shouldn't date people you're in a rap group with. I'll just say that out there.
I used to always say that shit to people. I'd be like, yo, you know what was my favorite example to give to people is like, yo, you don't want to be Wyclef. And like You're laying in bed with Lauryn Hill and you get a phone call from Nas and Nas doesn't want to feature you. He's like, yo, can you put Lauryn Hill on the phone? And it's like, damn, son.
Yo, that's not even the bad part.
Like, yo, you're Papoose and like Fat Joe's calling and like, yeah, I'll put Remy on. Sorry.
I could deal with that part. That part is fine. The part of it that nobody wants to deal with is like, yo, you're in the middle of a fucking crazy argument on the way to a radio show. You have to stop all of that emotion.
Yeah.
Up there, do the hey, yeah, okay, yeah. Get back in the car and go right back to like
argument mode.
Or just silence.
No, that shit, I feel that. I podcasted with my girlfriend.
But all in all, to say the fact that like it didn't work out. I don't want to like sit on that whole part. But me and Radar stayed super close. So me and him started doing music together. A couple of the songs that I did with him became like super popular in my repertoire. The joint, I have a song where it's like At the Door is called, that I performed like a good bit at live shows and whatnot. There's a remix version of it on the internet somewhere with Radar on it that could be found, but the actual version of it never got dropped. But so that music came out and that became super popular, and then I sort of became known for rapping like around. Then around 2014, I stopped by EODUB one night. This is before I'm hosting EODUB. I'm just like a guy that would go to shows, and Majesty, rest in peace, Jess James, and AP are the hosts. And AP is a producer rapper. Majesty is a rapper, organizer, dope individual that did a lot of things, founded legendary ciphers,
battle rapper.
Yeah, right. Battle rapper, held down End of the Week as a host for a long time. He passed away, sadly. I forget what year, but it's been some years now. And Jess James, who is the legendary Jess James.
Correct.
AP is working with Dom and Nils, and they're about to go on tour to where's Oslo? Norway.
Okay.
They're about to go on tour, and so Madge is like, "Yo, Bax, AP's about to go on tour. Do you want to sub in for him while he's away?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, I'll show up and rap at EODUB for a couple of Sundays. Why the fuck not?" So I subbed in for AP, and that was dumb fun. And it like me, Madge, I had a relationship. I was close with Jess. Like Jess called me by my actual name, which not a lot of people even know. You know what I'm saying? He was like already like my brother. Me and Madge had a cordial relationship, but we didn't really know each other like that. But Madge became like super close to me in my time hosting. And me and AP didn't really like know each other like that, but we became cool too. But like me, Madge and Jess like clicked like that, and it was lit. Then AP came back, and instead of me like just stopping, we was like, well, let's just all do it. So we all started hosting into the week. But you know, Jess had been hosting for a long time at that point. Jess had been hosting since whenever the Three Kings stopped hosting. I think Jess was like the natural successor.
He was the first. Yeah, right. He was the first one to pick up.
So at that time,
he would host with him and Vice.
And then it was him and Carnage.
Pro, and then him and Vice and Karn. Yeah.
Right. But at that time, Jess, I think, was burnt out. So Jess was the first. He was like, "Yo, guys, like I'm gonna take a break. Like I can't continue to, because it's a heavy lift to show up every single Sunday without fail. Like End of the Week went for a good 18 years, never missing a Sunday, not one. Like the
exactly.
9/11 happened.
So now I have an idea how big New York is. And like I can appreciate how the distance some people went must have been every single Sunday.
Yeah.
Especially like the Jersey people and shit.
9/11 happened, EODUB happened. Like everything was closed except EODUB. Fucking snowstorms would happen. They would get a boombox, they would stand out front of the club, and they would still rap just to like, you know, have a representation of EODUB. Like nothing stopped EODUB from happening. So then Fred Majesty got Fred, because Jess was the DJ as well. So he was even doing double duty. Shout out to Jess James. He was hosting and DJing at the time. Majesty brought in Fred Ones. And then for a long time, the hosting core became me, AP, Majesty, with Fred Ones as the DJ. And that, I would say, was like the new renaissance of EODUB, was sort of the start of that. So we were holding it down at the Pyramid for a good bit. And then then that's when I started like getting involved strategically. And I was like, the Pyramid is fine. I had just started seeing a very lovely woman at the time. But if you've ever been to the Pyramid, it's not the type of place you want to bring the lovely woman that you've just started seeing at the time.
No.
It is a dark room full of all kinds of characters. So she loved it because she fucked with hip hop. But she would be on stage the whole time. She would sit on stage while I was rapping. And I was like, that's kind of whack. Like, who wants to bring their girl to some place they don't feel comfortable with their girl being at? You know what I'm saying?
Facts.
And even she was like, I'd invite my friends, but like, you know, I don't want them to be like, you know, fighting off like creepy guys all night. And I'm like, I bet. So I was like, certain things need to change, you know? So and also Pyramid started acting, they was always kind of weird, but they started acting super weird. And the last straw was a monitor blew. For people who don't know, a monitor is the speaker on stage that faces the performer, so the performer can hear themselves and the music that's playing. Like there's the speakers that the crowd hears, and then the monitors what the performers hear. The monitor blew, and the Pyramid was just like, so? Like, fuck it. And I'm like, yo, be like, why? Like, we've been doing this shit for 14, 15 years. We don't need to be settling for like some whack ass club giving us their scraps, especially when like we're one of the main attractions for this club. So we started looking for a new place. And one of the requisites was like, yo, I want it to be a place that I can invite women to, because if you invite women there, everyone will have a good time. You know what I'm saying? Like there's not a place where women go party and hang out that people don't have a good time. And that's when we moved to Bowery Electric. At first, we were upstairs at Bowery Electric, which was a very small room. and we were kind of like starting over with the open mic. But it brought in Hilla, it brought in Nate, it brought in James Leone, it brought in Osiris Anthem, legendary ciphers guys started coming through, and it was like this new resurgence. And then Zoo and Pro and Vice what was always coming around, but they started coming back around. Then we moved to downstairs at Bowery Electric, and that's when shit started really popping off. We had Chris Rivers perform, we had Homeboy Sandman perform, we had Nitty Scott perform, African Bambaataa before all the nonsense, yada yada yada. And then we started making money again. That was always another prerequisite of mine. Is I wanted to be making money at the door and not fucking just breaking even and start paying people. And that's what really started working is I started booking the challenges. And as I was saying before, how I used to go everywhere, I knew all the other rappers that weren't coming to EODUB at the time. So I brought in Osiris Anthem. I brought in fucking Blake the Scorp. I don't want to say I brought in Dizzy Sense, but I feel like they came in that same realm where I started booking these people for challenges that weren't doing challenges before, and it kind of revitalized the challenge as well. And then we sent Eli Black to Switzerland. Was one of the first seasons that I booked. We sent, and then the reign of Osiris Anthem started. Then Osiris went to what was the first one he won? Prague? No. Yes, Prague. It was Prague. Then who won the Montreal finals?
I mean, maybe I should know, but I'm not sure I know that.
I don't think it was. Maybe. I don't think it was Osiris Anthem. I know he won 2 in a row, but he went 3 times. He won Belgium. He won. That's what he lost. France, Prague, and France. That's the ones he won. But yeah, that's the sort of the resurgence of EODUB. That's when EODUB started, coming back to life. I would say. Ren Thomas is another person that I think he won one. I think he might have been the one we sent to Montreal. Ren Thomas. Yeah, and then but unfortunately, Majesty left and passed away. AP left. And then for a good bit of time, I think I was the primary host, the only host for EODUB for the last 2 years or the last year and a half before the pandemic or whatever. And then Vice would jump in and help out, and Zoo would jump in and help out, but it was primarily me. Yeah, I did a lot of talking. I don't know.
No, that's the point. Sometimes when it's the Baxter telling us what Baxter is doing part of the stream, it's well, I mean, what are we gonna say? You're telling us end of the week history from the perspective of somebody that effectively carried it into a new part. When you talk, because I talked to Zoo, I talked to all the founders that I could talk to. Rest in peace, vice versa. And so it's their stories all stop at the same kind of general point. They don't have a lot going on past let's say 2012 in this, right?
Yeah.
And Jesse James necessarily wasn't again doing it either. So it's who have I really talked to that was carrying the torch during this next era that
I will also say
led to it?
Shout
so
out
you're
to,
actually the first.
Shout out to Amber Maillard too. There was a point in time where EODUB was me and my girlfriend. We would sit in our apartment at my ex-girlfriend we would sit in my apartment. She would be cooking up flyers. She booked people. She booked Science, if you know the artist named Science. She booked Latasha Alcindor, LA, who was pretty big in the New York scene, who's moved out to LA, ironically. Booked people, made flyers, was there with me every freaking Sunday. Also, shout out to Extra. I don't know how many people talk about Extra. I don't know if you've interviewed Extra. You guys definitely should interview Extra. Extra would probably be the one person that's been to more EODUBs than anybody else. He's been the doorman for a long time.
Oh, I want to talk to the doorman guy. That guy's gonna have the best stories of everybody. Everyone else's stories are not going to be from the perspective that the doorman has.
And he held it down. He was the first person there a lot of nights, making sure shit went right.
That's a big respect.
Yeah.
I honestly,
we should do that because I'm gonna have
heard that before.
I'm gonna have a great talk with him about like comic book shit.
Oh, absolutely.
No, it's like
also extra fucking dope rapper who like only ever raps at the very end of the night. Like maybe night. like he never forces it. He's never like, yo, I gotta rap.
Every
He's
night
like,
I was there. He was there. He was rapping.
Dope, and mad humble about it.
That's really cool. I mean, I like the fact that you're coming in and explaining even just that next part of it, right? Like, I mean, I know about the pyramid, but I don't know about what happened next. I heard about the part where it was glorious. I don't know about the resurgence into it. I mean, arguably, I'd be sitting there going, huh, I got a $5,000 contest. That's some, like, pretty fucking fire shit that they'd be doing right now.
I agree.
I mean, like,
that's why I don't look at the pyramid too as fondly as like other people do. I mean, it was dope, and I look at it fondly because of the experience that was there, but it has not treated EODUB with the respect that I think it should, seeing as how like we fucking built that place. You know who built the pyramid? 2 people, the pharaohs and EODUB. That's it. No,
no, but it's like, it's just really interesting that you even bring that up from like a whole other side of it, right? So let's say you are a brand trying to work with an establishment, or you're doing your thing and you're in a situation where you feel like whoever it is not respecting you properly. It's like you can just leave and find a better situation for your shit. And the other big part you said was make sure girls want to be there.
I mean, super facts. And like if anybody been to the Bowery Electric shows, like there were girls there, like, you know what I'm saying, like a good amount of them. And like I'll say that's another thing. Like when I took over, when I became sort of the deciding factor of EODUB, which I don't even know if people realize that, like some people do. I had one directive, and that was I wanted to put on a show that if you came to it, you would want to come to the next one. That's the only thing I gave a fuck about. I didn't care about putting my friends on. I didn't care about making sure people who like came 20 years ago rapped. I didn't care about like any of that shit. I cared about making a dope show and making a show that you would want to come to the next one. Those were like my priorities. And because of that,
I literally think everybody in the world that ever throws a show in the future needs to know that lesson.
Absolutely, because you know it's very easy to get, especially in New York City, it's very easy to get caught up in like being the person who puts the show on. Like, you know, like I'm the big dog in this room, which is you could fall into that trap and think that like it's you and it's not the show, right? You know what I'm saying? Like you could be having a good time and nobody else is. But like all I wanted was dope performers that people enjoyed. Challenges, I wanted the challenge to be dope. I didn't really want a specific person to win, and I didn't hold on to like a lot of those same things that are like a lot of the other founders held on to, like doing it every Sunday night. I might have been the first person to be like, I don't know if we need to do it every Sunday night. Leaving the pyramid, I was definitely like, I'm not attached to the pyramid. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and there was like a lot of changes that happened that like some people didn't fuck with at first. One of the very first things I did is I made the list random, because what would happen, or what was happening is the same like 5 to 10 people would show up, and they would be the same 5 to 10 people that rocked every fucking Sunday, and then like the room would get empty out. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, well, how do I combat that? Like, how do I like stop that from happening? If you make the list random, one, they have to stay in the crowd, because then they might miss their spot if they don't. And then 2, it's a new versions of people every fucking week or month. You know what I'm saying? And we lost people because of that. There were certain people who were so used to being able to rock first, or being able to rock like whenever they wanted to in that first batch, that they stopped coming. You know what I'm saying? Or people who were like, they were in with somebody, right? They would be like, they would have somebody who was there and they'd be like, yo, put my name on a list. And they were so used to like coming in and being third on the list and going like first. It's like, now they're like, yo, put my name on the list. They don't know when they're going. They could get called first. They could get called, like, they could have their name on the list and get called last. Like, you have to be there for the whole show. You know what I'm saying? So it's like changes like that some people, I'm pretty sure, are looked at as like hurt because we lost people, but gained a whole new audience. Like, you know, we went from having 15 people in a room to having the room packed out, you know? And
can't argue with those type of results.
I mean,
right.
And then that's it. Like at the end of the day, it just sounds like what you did was what was necessary to adapt to a different market. Like, let's be real. As an artist, if I'm like gonna come to your shit and it's always gonna be the end of the night to an empty crowd in an era with the internet, why am I doing that? Like, there's no reason for me. Like, I mean, yeah, I might love the rap, but like, nah, like I want my opportunity to hit the front of that crowd. And then the other side of it is like, I don't know, maybe I'm just spoiled, but man, my life has never allowed me to always be the first person to show up at some shit. There's always like, it's not easy. So then it creates like this situation where it discourages people. And
right. And if the list is random, there's a chance that if you show up and you sign it whenever you signed it, you might be next. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's really cool stuff. And I'm gonna say that sincerely. Like it's a good advice for how to keep people engaged, because everybody knows that most shows clean out and people spend half the show outside type thing.
Right.
You know, I could tell you from like being. I mean, I didn't part right. Like I was like already like
right.
not like participating.
We're in an open micer.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. But I can tell you that I, as a person who just identifies problems like for a living and like just recreationally, because that's who I am. Like there were wild problems, and it sounds like you fixed them all. You know what I mean? Like
I don't know about all, but
I mean the a lot of problems that, like, you know, that is a huge problem. The list and people like performing and not, that's a super great answer to that problem right there. You know what I mean? Like randomizing
the location, the vibe, recognizing, but it was also like, I want to make sure my life is simple too. And I like that's where it came from.
It's a little simple and it's not, because like Flacco said, like I am a problem solver as well. Like I identify patterns, and if you're just talking about a problem in front of me, I'm probably already thinking of like how to solve your problem, whether I say it or not. but the negative part about that is oftentimes you come off as being like the person always pointing out the problem. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, so a lot of times people are like all excited about their plan, and I'm like, well,
ooh, you know, I see that's a flaw there.
Like, this is gonna happen if we do this, and we need to be like prepared for it. Like, you know,
prepared.
Which
for
is
the worst and the, you know,
right?
Yeah,
absolutely. Especially in live events, you know, because at live events, shit is always gonna go wrong. Like whenever people is putting a run of show and like it's to the minute, I'm like, have you done this before? Like, you know, if they're like, Joe jump around gets off of stage at 11:30 and fucking Maggie's whatever gets on stage at 11:31. I'm like, that's not gonna happen. Like, not at all. Like, there's gonna be time like with the first one artist is gonna keep talking, or the other artist has to get set up or whatever. It's like, why don't you put that time in there? Put 3 minutes between the shows. What this person ends, 3 minutes, next person starts. That way, if it is seamless, we're ahead of schedule. Like, you know what I'm saying? And if it's not, we accounted for it, you know? And it's just like little shit like that you know, you learn doing this shit, doing a event production, you know? I kind of miss it. I'll be, to be honest with you, like doing live shows and like, because it's when it all comes together, that is a fucking great
feels it's a good feeling. Yeah.
I mean,
like, I did my job.
Facts, especially when you see like the crowd enjoying it and it's the end of the night and it's like people are like, yo, this is a great show, like can't wait for the next one. I'm like, that's the fucking point. That's the fucking point.
So like you basically ran this till COVID.
What would you say?
You basically ran this until COVID like ended shit?
What was the last I think we might have taken a break because we were planning on doing the World Finals in New York. I don't know if you remember this. The 2020 World Finals was supposed to be in New York City. So we were like trying to plan for that, like, you know, the week of events and all that stuff. But then COVID hit. So like up until COVID, I would say up until right before COVID, what happened was there was a point in time where I was the only person that I had to like check on about, like, if I wanted to book somebody, I just fucking booked them. If I wanted to put a flyer out, I just put the flyer out. Like whatever needed to get done, like I didn't have to ask anybody. Like I, for all intents and purposes, was EODUB. But as things started to progress, as we started making money, as we started sort of moving back to like interacting with the world situation as well, we started moving to like a board council thing. So like James, we started having monthly or bi-monthly meetings. It would be like James, Kendra, me, Vice, Zoo, Nunzio, my girlfriend at the time, Amber, and some other people from here and there. Like Dama was coming to meetings at a time, Jess was coming to meetings at a time, you know. So we sort of grew from that. So like when I started, there were no meetings. When I started, there was just Majesty, Jess, and AP, like showing up and making it happen. And then by the end of it, like we were having meetings again. We had talking about budgets. We started booking bigger named artists and dealing with the world more often, and we were going to have the World Finals in New York City, but then COVID happened. And then at the beginning of COVID, we super tragically and unfortunately Vice passed. So like that threw everything into sort of out of whack. Yep. Yeah. But I will say, like, there's no such thing as a silver lining to some shit like that. But if anything good can be said about it, is like we organized around that in a different way. So we started the Zoom, you know, and I think it like Holden, like I know you through the Zoom, you know what I'm saying? So it's like it introduced so many different people to so many different people. It opened up other avenues to us. One of my biggest sort of not gripes, but one of my biggest pet peeves, and anybody will tell you this, is I've always been harping about EODUB transitioning to the internet. I was like, yo, this live shit that we're doing is fire, but it don't matter if we do it and then that's it. Like if you were there, you saw some dope shit, but that's it. It's like we need to the dope shit that happens needs to be created for content for the internet.
For content. For the internet. Facts.
Spit
like,
that game.
Yeah.
Say
like
it again.
Like if it doesn't exist on the internet afterwards, then we might as well have not have done it. You know what I'm saying?
That was the biggest disservice that happened to like look, you know how many people in like just like no bullshit, right? How many people in EODUB history were like more popular than me in EODUB, but they weren't more popular than me online?
Facts.
You know what I mean? Ooh. Like you didn't have no fucking battles with 40,000 views. You know what I mean?
Facts.
So like, and that's what like
and those battles live today.
And they live
that's
today.
True.
Exactly.
It's actually like
I had that like still continues, and it held it down, and it helped my popularity. And I saw people at the Dub that they were like great
the
artists,
man. They were the
man at the Dub, but you didn't do like there was no content coming out of there for you to show the rest of the world.
So nobody ever saw that dope freestyle that person did.
Yeah,
nobody.
It was just us who were at the Dub that Sunday.
So like that was always
facts.
And even today, I would say that's still like we're doing more, and I'm happy about it. But I think there's a more direct and advantageous way. Then I see, you know, this is no disrespect. I saw like organizations like Team Backpack, and I'm like, yo, there is no Team Backpack. Like it doesn't exist in the physical world. You can't go to Team Backpack. You can't like see Team Backpack. It only exists on the internet.
Not a place. Yeah,
right.
It's just
and that's no respect to them. But what I'm saying is like I saw them get so big doing something that we
already do
in real life. Like
literally were
you know what the thing is
that
that because it wasn't on the internet, like
Exactly.
I mean, how was I supposed to see it on YouTube back when Backpack was showing up in Montreal?
And that's what I was trying to like. That was what I was always harping on in these meetings. I was like, "Yo, we got Immortal Technique. We got Homeboy Sandman. We got Charles Hamilton. We got like all
the names that everybody else would look at like with all that reverence.
Right.
Like this is our alumni.
Right. Oh, like if we, but the problem was, like, we never stopping the open mic was never the option. So it's kind of like trying to change the spark plugs on a car while you're driving it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's kind of like trying to like create this or trying to create this new thing while you're still like maintaining this other thing. So it's like, while I could recognize and acknowledge that we definitely are slacking on the internet, and that's where the future of EODUB is. I still had so much. Like, I couldn't let the open mic showcase fail. I could not give that attention. I could not like book dope people for the challenges. I could not like make sure we didn't have flyers. Or
like, arguably, it's not like now where like we could come up with 18 ways to like have me watching your shit super easy peasy and like it's dope. Like, honestly, pre-COVID, it wasn't easy. It was like, if you knew how to do that shit, it was fucking like, yo, say a word. It took me months to learn some basics, you know?
Necessity is the mother of invention, you know? We needed we needed to still do it, and we found this way, you know?
I was gonna say this like the Mandalorian, Boba Fett, Star Wars shit. Like, this is the way now. Like,
facts.
This is the way. You know what
facts.
I mean?
Like, and even
this might not be the same thing, but the amount of content that got created through this Zoom and through this platform is fucking amazing and great and exactly
and valuable, super valuable.
A thing that needed to have been happened. Fuck whether it needed to been happen. It did happen. You now have it. You keep on going, and now you add on, right? Like, so when you do go back to the live show, like, it's with this like in mind of like, yo, we gotta. It's like battle rap, like, really, right? Like, and it was crazy because it's like, yo, we had so much. There was so much, like, back then when we were popping with Grind Time East Coast. There was so much like trying to cross brand, making sure that like we were like, oh, at Drum, which is down the block from Pyramid, and like and that our events would happen on Sunday before the dub, so that after we would let out from our event,
go right up the block.
People could just go right up the block to the dub, right?
Yep.
And it's just like, yo, treat it like battle rap, like dead ass. Have like
that's quite literally how Twitch works.
That knows how to capture the shit right at the right like way, so that it can be edited perfectly.
That almost matters more than the event. Online. The event could suck. Yeah. The event could be horrible. Everybody there could be like, this was ass. I was a horrible time. I don't ever want to do this again. But if the footage is fucking fire, that's like,
no, that's wild. And you could even have it where people are online talking about how fire it is. I mean, look at that versus, right? That versus that just happened with fucking, I can't remember who it was. Somebody was like, yeah, and in the room it was like a Locks murked it on the internet, but everyone was like, nah, but you don't understand in the room, so and so. It might not have been them. It was one of these versuses, but like when you looked at the people's reaction from,
I think it might have been the KRS One and Rakim joint.
Yeah, that's the one.
Kane.
Yeah.
So like when you watched it back and forth on the internet, it was like, yo, it didn't look the same as it was in the room. And so effectively there are two completely different reactions that appeared on the internet based on how you consume the show. And the internet decided what it decided regardless of what the room felt. And usually that's what for one thing I learned talking to battle rappers is the internet gets to decide a lot more than the room
Absolutely.
does.
That's why they stopped announcing winners, and they just let it go to the internet and let people talk about it.
Yeah, I could tell you from being a part of it. Like that's what was the downfall of Grind Time, was like, yo, the judging is just fucking it up. Just let people argue over who they think wins rather than deciding for them and upsetting them and turning your audience off to you.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And and battle rap is another like great example of that, of where like, yo, sometimes like you'll have a performance that's like, it's great in the room, it doesn't translate well online.
Yeah.
Or it was shitty in the room, and like
online,
it
it's everything.
in the room. Like people felt like, oh, Sway won this battle in the venue, but then it goes online and people are like, yo, you didn't catch the live perform, the live crowd didn't catch everything that this guy was doing and saying, and then they fuck with that. Even have, you know, so it's just like,
I'm not gonna lie, the rewind button does change the entire experience.
I mean, it's true, but ultimately, like, and this is kind of bringing it back to what we were talking about at the beginning about like the live, like having the talent to perform live versus the internet, and like, and this is why I say the people who are upset that the new generation doesn't value it is why it's a little misplaced, is because like things don't go backwards. So no matter how upset motherfuckers are about shit, they're never going to unbuild the car. You know what I'm saying? They're not going to unbuild the TV. They're not going to unbuild the radio. So once TV showed up, don't like people will be upset. They'll be like, oh man, back in the day, you didn't have to look good. You just needed a great voice. It was all about the voice. Well, guess what? The TV's here. You got to look good. That why spend time arguing about like how it could have been or how it was? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like the internet is here. There's it's not going away. Like, you know what I'm saying? So like we either figure out how to use it, or we do what we do for now
and behind.
Right, and
we get left behind is the truth, because that's what happens to anybody who's not willing to to evolve. Right,
yeah,
like you
absolutely.
Get left behind.
You're either growing or you're dying.
There's
no staying still. You're either growing or you're dying, and that's why it's like that's why I'm so super excited about the Diesel challenge and all of the content we got for that, and like the even the beef between Royce the 5'9" and Lupe Fiasco, which EODUB sort of got pulled into. I'm like, yes, talk about us more on the internet.
Yeah,
like let shit happen on the internet, please. I'm hoping. I'm like, can somebody else beef with fucking Osiris Anthem? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like who else we got there that raps about the beef with Osiris Anthem? Because it's just it's all a good look, man. For us to exist more in that lane, and what
it definitely adds a lot when people on Instagram are making your shit go trendy because it's just the trendy shit on Instagram that day.
Also, shout out to you both you guys, because we should probably go back through your archives and highlight a lot of the history that you guys are bringing up in these conversations, because what happens is like
this would like fucking slay on TikTok. I was thinking
people just don't know.
One of the things I was thinking is, you know what's really hard to do? Then I just checked your site. Like, it's not easy to find the hours of concert footage that exist from all of y'all. And if you were to grab like some of this classic concert footage and just pump that shit into 45 seconds on TikTok, oh my gosh, you would have little 16-year-olds that you could never talk to in your life that care.
From the live performances, that's the part that actually matters. Is that 45 seconds of like Rise doing fucking I guess Moolah,
absolutely,
and the whole crowd going crazy.
Yeah,
for people to be like, whoa.
I wish I was there that night.
Why did I miss out? Exactly.
Right.
Why I wish I was there that night. That's always the feeling people have. It's
right. They don't see
like a motherfucker.
They don't see the five. Like, we had to sit through the other motherfucker. You know what I'm saying?
But like there is like or like you got all this footage out there. Is all I'm saying, and it's like it's not simple to navigate it.
We're working on that too. You're absolutely right, because a lot of it is other people that recorded us. Like, you know, EODUB has almost never had we have one guy that like tapes up a lot. And also shout out to Marco Polo. Marco Polo has like so much footage of not
shouts to Donovan Cass.
Shout out, yes, Donovan Cass, who also, if you ever need to move in New York City or whatever, he owns Chelsea Movers. Fucking moves everybody.
Shouts to Chelsea Movers. That's the shit that I love about the indie scene, is like how much like between battle rap and like the indie,
nothing but Venn diagrams, man.
I've seen like there's just all this like, Yo, I know a dude that like I was trying to bring to New York. Sorry, I'll bring it back real fast and make it short. But like this dude went viral with his first battle in fucking Podunk Shittown, USA. And like I was trying to bring him to the draft to New York City because I was like, yo, he's like, I like his style. He's got super potential. There was a guy that I had who had his similar style.
Yeah.
They were both white. I was like, this would be a great battle. He didn't do that. He didn't battle much after that at all. Ends up becoming a fucking YouTube magician that's like super popular with like millions of subscribers. And I'm like, people don't even realize that like this guy used to fucking battle rap and shit.
Right.
You know what I mean? The indie scene of hip hop has all sorts of like it spreads into the worlds of everything.
Yeah, you know what's my favorite thing, and when I say the favorite thing, I mean I mean it sarcastically. I mean this is just something I noticed that happens that I find interesting is when I was younger, there was a lot of white rappers, so many white rappers, you know, in the scene doing their thing, and almost like clockwork, this thing happens where they hit a certain age. And they want to go back to wherever they came from, and then they scrub the internet of all of their like raps and rapping and shit like that. And it's almost like they never existed. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, it's one of those things where, you know, like people talk about
shit.
Well, people talk about like vultures or people who are like tourists in the culture or whatever like that. And you know it, but you don't necessarily look to your left and right and be like, oh, this guy and that guy. But it's true because I don't look at this as like something I can leave, you know, even no matter which direction my life goes, no matter like how much responsibility I get, like I'm always going to want to rap and make music and at least like be involved in music, you know, because
I've always said that is that like, it doesn't matter how old I get, I'm going to have to make music to get out my creativity. I need to release that creative stream of thought, of creativity, period,
philosophy,
or
man.
I'm gonna get stuffed up as a human being, and I'll just become a decrepit piece of shit that's just like angry and miserable at everything. Like,
right. And
I
on top
need
of that,
to do music to release.
I just also don't understand how you can go through this giant phase of your life and then be like, nah, I'm gonna go like, yo. I mean, I know why. But like,
it's like people who go backpacking in Europe. You know, you backpack while you're in Europe, and then you go home to where you're from, and that's why they call them tourists. You know, but it's just it's so fascinating to me how many times I've seen it. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, wow, yo, like that's such an interesting thing. Like I don't understand.
Happens a lot.
Right. It's like you don't like. Because like we all want to be successful, and almost everybody wants to be rich, right? But it's like, yo, okay, so you're not gonna get rich doing this. Maybe that's where the realization you come to. Why stop?
Yo, you want to know why sometimes you might stop? It's a little anecdotally. Being the white rapper in your mid-30s in mid-management in corporate America is a vibe that not a lot of people have ever talked about because it's not something that's, you know, going to come up a lot. Because you want to know why? When you get there, you find out that you got to speak super white and like really do. Like I got in trouble once, you know, like you can't be using slang like that no more if you want to be getting more money. And like I realized the real reason I can't leave my job is how tolerant they are of my life. Like I am
of your
able to
rapper
go to
lifestyle.
And it's like I don't like it is what it is. It's just that old school black people's not professional shit. It's just how it's perceived. And so all of a sudden you're facing $30,000 a year more and you're going for a job interview in an era where people be combing your social media. Like this is a badge of pride to me. I call myself a fucking content creator to you corporate flex type vibe. But like, well, yeah, and also that's not the average way that most people will approach it when facing a check type thing.
And also, like but that's changing too, right? This is new. Like now, for an employer, it's not crazy to like Google someone and find out they have a podcast.
Yeah, no, nowadays things have changed. Like there's fucking guys with fucking neck tattoos, white guys with neck tattoos.
Facts.
Fucking working fucking goddamn stocks at fucking Wall Street and shit. And you're just like, what? Why was this? Why is it?
I think it's like also
it's okay when
people are like more lenient with like young people, because like at a certain point you realize that companies aren't hiring mid-30s people unless you hella good, right? You got to be like something going in your life, because everybody at 20 is honestly got arguably a very similar skill set for most of the modern world, when everybody's a digital marketer flipping web traffic shit. You know, that's kind of like you're either in the physical world of some kind, you're in retail, or you're working for some company doing internet shit, whether it's selling products, whatever. But
even that's changing, because like with more people working from home, and the people who do the hiring don't know, like it's another thing if the person who's hiring you has the skill set to do your job, but they don't know, like a lot of these people who hire people for coding don't know how to code. You know what I'm saying?
Facts.
So what it is like, they're like, I guess this person's qualified. You know what I'm saying? Like, they say they've got this certificate. That's what they need, I suppose. So it's, things become like more and more skewed. But that's we're getting off on another tangent. I say, like, it's just interesting to me. And I think another part of it that has to do with the fact is, like, my friends, the people I actually hang out with in life, are still artists, are still rappers, are still other people who do other kinds of arts. They like painters, whatever. Like, I am an artist surrounded by artists. And I feel like maybe a lot of these white rappers, I don't want to say they're real friends, but like the people that they like have to be around.
It's the colleague shit, though.
You're right. They're not
you
artists.
You end up in these worlds with homeowners and parents, and like,
no homeowner, no homeowner. No,
arguably, I make less money because of my lifestyle rather than anything to do with my work quality.
Yeah, because you'd rather keep it real.
No, it's not that. I mean, yes, sort of, but like, I'm kind of more in the vein of, I didn't just jump into making music because it was nothing to me. I mean, I've been writing raps and poetry since like half my life. Like,
and there's a happiness that comes with that. There's a contentness that comes with that.
Like a lot of people I know are honestly, they make music to make money, and at no point in my life have I made music to make money. I've always made money to make music. I don't know if that and that's like, just like, I honestly needed to get more money in life because I can't make, like, right now the music I want to make is out of my price range, so I have to figure out how to get more money so I can make the music in my head.
And that's real, and which is crazy is, like, most successful people already say that. They say, like, yo, if you do it for the money, it doesn't work out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Not don't be smart about your money. Not don't make sure you get paid for your work. But like, if the intent, that the reason you do it is for money, when the money doesn't come the way you want it to come, you're gonna quit. And that's what a lot of people do. But on that note, how much more time?
No, there's no more, like,
okay.
Feel free. Like, it was a long, good, not like long enough.
No. This was a great conversation.
This was a good long conversation.
I almost want to be like, yo, let's get up and talk again sometime.
That's actually like I think there's a lot of value in having somebody like you, especially with your role, almost come back in and maybe even do like a regular 6-month update and bringing people into what the end of the week is.
I'm like, what I'm pissed off about
been the best ambassador for end of the week I've talked to make it compelling to like a me.
Okay.
Which is maybe like a different way of looking at it. Because
I'm gonna put that on my artistic resume for right now. It's like, yo, the best end of the week ambassador.
And I say it because, like, you seem to get that the whole world's not New York City, which is a bit of an end of the week's got a bit of a learning curve. And I'm not from New York City.
Well, yeah. When the small pond that you're in is New York City, it's very easy to forget that shit is happening other places.
But with that, I think this is really cool, and it's like it makes me feel like even more inspired for end of the week having talked to you on the real. But also, thank you for like taking the time to share stuff with us and just take your time like that.
Of course, really, man. Thank the both of you guys.
Thank you, for real.
Yeah.
And thanks everyone out there who's what's your favorite movie from back in the day?
I have 3 favorite movies from back in the day. Hold on. Shakespeare in Love is one of my favorite movies. It's a fantastic movie. Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Oh, and The Dark Knight. So Shakespeare in Love is most back in the days.
Fair. So yeah,
I also love West Side Story.
They Scott Pilgrim.
They remade West Side Story. I'm like, why would I ever not watch the original? Like, I don't need another version of this, but whatever.
No, it's for the little ones, man, who don't have the nostalgia.
Why they should go watch the original? You know what I'm saying?
Bro, it's hard. I'm just saying, it's hard sometimes to go back like that. It's hard. It's hard. I like Star Trek. It's hard to watch the original series. Is all I'm saying. But like, all I have to say, it's great for everybody. Sorry, great to have you here. Thank you to everyone out there who watched this too, that saw this live, that was involved in this process. Thank you to all the people that will watch this in the future. Y'all are wonderful. It's also great to have you in this process because, like, it's like as much as we love having the conversations, that's what makes it a show. So thank y'all for being there. Make sure to follow and support End of the Week. You can find them in the easiest way at EODUB, EODUB.com. All the stuff will be there for you to find it on your preferred whatever platforms. Make sure to follow Baxter, and it is at That Ninja Wordz with a Z at the end.
Everywhere.
So Ninja Wordz.
Anywhere you go, look for That Ninja Wordz, and that's me.
And you gotta make sure to use the Z and not the S. I know
because it's hip hop.
It was a big epiphany for all of us out there. But we really appreciate having you here. We appreciate everybody that's out there. On that note, do you have any last words for the fine folk?
Yeah, two things. Never trust advice that rhymes, and you got to be in it to win it.
That's great. Take care, everybody, and live long and prosper, everyone.
Shout out to Vice Versus.
Gang, gang. Wow.
This was super fun, yo.
Twitch, Danny is here with us, so she should be